Shikiro Sato once held the undisputed world rank of number 1 in the immersive VR MMORPG Mobius Online. His greatest achievement was reaching the top with his character, 7. One day, 7 was hacked and deleted. Even the backups were erased, affecting nearly 3,000 players. The culprit was a jealous high-ranking player who wanted to surpass them. Administrators said the characters could not be restored and only offered faster leveling for replacements. Shikiro was furious, but every complaint received the same response. Unable to recover 7 or move on, he fell into despair. Eventually, he decided to die. He later appeared on Vincent's main street in the Kingdom of Castal, a location from Mobius Online. Inside a shop called Icicle, he wonders when he logged in until a girl asks him to stop blocking the aisle. She is Ice-chan, the mascot from the store poster, though her behavior seems far more realistic than before. Thinking he wants to buy something, she apologizes and blushes when he calls her cute. Shikiro assumes the game received a major update during his absence. Looking at his reflection, he realizes he is not 7 but his alternate character, 2nd. 2nd has never been trained and possesses 0 experience. Lacking motivation to raise him, Shikiro tries to log out. Neither the settings nor emergency exit works, making him suspect his old reality no longer exists and that he may already be dead. He pinches himself and feels pain despite supposedly being inside a game. Realizing he has reincarnated into Mobius Online, Shikiro becomes hysterically excited. He celebrates loudly for an hour until guards arrive and arrest him. A guard asks Ice-chan whether he is the troublemaker. She confirms that he caused a disturbance outside her shop, leaving Shikiro confused. Ice-chan asks why he behaves so strangely. At the station, members of Castal's Third Night Company question him. His expensive clothes make them suspect he is a noble. Shikiro introduces himself as 2nd, an adventurer, but the guard doubts him. She explains that ordinary adventurers could never afford such clothing. Shikiro realizes his rare equipment is attracting suspicion. The Third Night Company's lower ranks strongly resent nobles, making the situation worse. Shikiro has no idea how to explain himself until another guard enters. He strikes the rude guard, Sylvia, and takes over the interrogation. After apologizing, he asks 2nd's identity and motive. Shikiro claims to be 17 because that was 2nd's age when the character was created, though he was 28 in reality. The report says he danced and screamed outside the store. Shikiro apologizes and insists he caused trouble unintentionally. He promises to apologize to Icicle's owner and purchase something later. He is also ordered to pay 15,000 CL in compensation. Shikiro has nearly 2 billion CL and already owns rare clothes and armor, but realizes prices may differ from the game. He asks Sylvia how much one night costs, confusing her. Her realistic misunderstanding, similar to Ice-chan's behavior, increases his suspicions. Sylvia explains that lodging costs 7,000 CL with meals or 4,000 without. Shikiro books 5 nights without food. His appearance attracts attention everywhere, especially from women. The reason is 2nd's beautiful limited edition avatar. Unlike in a game, such beauty stands out in reality, confirming that this is a real world rather than a simulation. Shikiro decides to become number 1 again. The next morning, he suffers after drinking heavily to celebrate his reincarnation. His first priority is obtaining essential skills. Mobius Online uses experience points to learn skills and raise stats. Experience comes from defeating monsters and completing quests. Skills include combat, magic, and crafting. They progress through 16 grades, 9 levels, and special titles, all requiring experience. Since 2nd's growth demands enormous experience, Shikiro orders curry rice while planning his progression. 2nd shares 7's versatile growth type. His stats rise evenly, giving him the potential to become number 1, though he cannot specialize deeply in a single field. 2nd's versatile growth type allows all his stats to rise together. To exploit this advantage, Shikiro plans to use large quantities of potions. He asks a potion shop for high-quality detoxifying recovery potions. The merchant warns they are extremely expensive and says only 630 are available. Shikiro buys all 630 enhanced potions, which restore health, remove poison, and regenerate the body, for 75 million CL. He pays in cash, stores them in his inventory, and orders another 9,000 bottles. The potions are essential for the DK tactic, an expensive method of gaining early experience. Borrowed from the old game Dinosaur Quest, the tactic uses recovery items to damage undead enemies. Each bottle heals living targets but deals 1,200 damage to undead. That is enough to kill a mid-class zombie viper, which grants considerable experience. Shikaro only needs to throw the potions at them. Anyone can use this method, though it was normally limited to wealthy alternate characters and veteran players. Its greatest drawback is the cost. Around 10,000 bottles and over 1 billion CL are required, so only players supported by a developed main character could afford it. The tactic works only before the new character gains experience. Shikaro never expected to rely on such a method himself. After riding for 2 hours, he reaches a huge cave beside a mine that serves as the hunting ground. Nobody else is there. Shikaro briefly wonders whether others have already used the tactic. He concludes that the cost discourages beginners and soon finds the monster's lair. The zombie vipers look far more disgusting than in the game, so he wants to finish quickly. Since the monsters respawn when he cycles between hunting areas, Shikaro repeatedly clears them and throws all 630 potions, steadily earning experience. By the time he leaves, it is already dark. Upon reaching the city for food and rest, someone calls out to him. Shikaro explains that he was delayed while gaining experience in the mine, but Sylvia doubts him. She refuses to believe he survived the cave's monsters alone. When Shikaro jokes that vipers might be edible, Sylvia realizes he lacks common sense. Her insults begin irritating him. Shikaro asks about the 21 dungeons known as paradises in Mobian, which players once explored by sharing information. Sylvia corrects him, saying only 19 exist. Shikaro asks how many have been explored. She answers 13, and he leaves after obtaining the information he wanted. With his game knowledge, Shikaro will not need to risk his life repeatedly to reach the top. Once he gathers enough experience, his next destination is the library. Learning a skill requires first reading the relevant book. The Royal Library contains many skill books, though Shikaro refuses the attendant's help. He only needs to skim each book for the system to recognize it, allowing him to move rapidly through the shelves. He studies fencing, archery, and 4 magical elements. Sorcery uses fire, water, air, and earth, each divided into 5 forms: Ikai, Nai, San, Shi, and Go. Since the library's books match those from Mobian, Shikaro plans to obtain rarer grimoires through quests. He intends to gain experience with long-range fire arrows before improving his sword skills. After that, he will develop high-powered magic and finally witchcraft. He also possesses a spirit premium ticket from Second's limited edition avatar. Using it increases the chance of summoning a rare spirit. Since witchcraft is difficult to use as a primary weapon, he will develop it only after strengthening his other skills. Shikaro begins distributing his accumulated experience points. Archery requires many points, magic must reach 5th grade, and the pawn archery skill is needed as a foundation. He spends all his experience and plans to return to the library if he needs additional skills. Archery includes the pawn, spear, knight, silver general, gold general, bishop, and rook branches. These grant precise shots, powerful attacks, knockdowns, piercing strikes, and devastating single-target techniques. Knight, Gold General, and Rook are especially important because they greatly expand his tactics, but they require more than experience points. Their second requirement is completing specific quests or conditions. Killing a monster while mounted unlocks Horse. Killing 20 enemies with 1 arrow each grants Silver General Shooting, while killing 10 from within 3 meters grants Gold General Shooting. Bishop requires killing 5 monsters simultaneously with spear and 2 enemies from 25 meters using horse and spear. Rook is the hardest, requiring 1,000 kills and 500 critical hits with silver general archery. Its final condition requires killing 3 monsters consecutively with 1 shot from at least 5 meters using knight and silver archery after each target has lost half its health to another player. Even thinking about these requirements exhausts Shikaro. One mistake forces the entire process to be repeated. In the game, other players could help by lowering their health to the required amount. In reality, losing half one's health could cause serious injury or death, making the condition almost impossible to recreate. Although Shikaro desperately wants the skill, he must accept the risk. After 1 week of using the DK tactic, he improves his other abilities. He then begins working toward his archery requirements. Shikaro discovers 5 motionless people, while another 5 struggle against monsters. He realizes their situation could satisfy the Rook requirement if he waits until their health falls far enough. Although using them feels wrong, the opportunity could grant him the skill. Remembering that they are real people with their own goals and lives, Shikaro hesitates to let them die. Sato can't let that happen. It was unbearable to see this. He shouted at the guards to duck. The boy used the 5th grade spear skill archery and destroyed the monsters. Sylvia saw how he dealt with everyone single-handedly, and before she had a bad opinion of him, she thought that he was raised without knowing difficulties and did not want to know what brings trouble to others, but now her opinion has changed. Sato dealt with 6 scarlet mantises in 20 seconds with a regular bow. She couldn't imagine how intense his training was. Sylvia, who has embarked on the path of a knight, having come so far with only 1 blade. It was useless whatever she did. Her family ridiculed her for her lack of talent with a sword, and everyone in the 3rd Knight's Order where she worked was extremely weak. Sylvia never showed her strength, and many thought she was a weakling, constantly pushing for justice she couldn't ensure. Even if she suspects a noble person of injustice, the boss will put pressure on her, and all this led to contempt for the authorities. Even when her comrades died, the top brass is trying to recruit second. Sato was offered to join the Adventurers Guild. He thought he would be thanked, but all he heard was that he was invited to join their ranks. The man thought he had been hasty with his offer. He told him that there were rumors that the guy was not a member of any guild, although he looked like an adventurer. The Adventurers Guild Kingdom coordinates and executes requests for monster subjugation. In reality, it is the first organization to control adventurers, as Sato learned from stories in Mobian. The guy refused the man's offer, explaining that he did not want to be associated with organizations. But the guard tries to persuade him, saying that he would not want to let such an exceptional person go. They saw the guy's true strength, and now many will want to recruit him. Shikiro asks if they will protect him. The man replied that they will protect him only if he joins. It was suspicious that they were talking about his strength as if it were normal, even though there were 3 other witnesses. He couldn't understand why they wanted him to work with them. The guy still refused, as he thought it would be an obstacle on the way to becoming number 1. The man entrusted Sato's escort to Dono Sylvia, who would watch over him. He doesn't understand how to lure the guy to himself, and added that the girl is known in the kingdom as a strict person towards the nobles. The old man's pursuit Sylvia's approval. All of it was suspicious, and he didn't understand their true purpose. The girl is strict with the nobles, who are the top echelon of the knightly order, and she's more of a thorn in their side. Apparently, they wanted to demote her. Shikiro wants to know how much time she will spend with him, but the man advised him to ask her personally. He understood the girl's surprise because she herself knew what this meant for her. Although the old man pretended to respect the girl's opinion, in reality, 1 word from Sato would be enough. The man asked if Sylvia had any wishes. She had nothing to add, so the guy joined their conversation. He proposed a period of 2 years, during which time he plans to take 1st place in the world. The guy offered to make a deal. He suspected the old man had asked her to seduce him in order to force him to join the royal order. She didn't understand why Sato had started speaking to her like that, perhaps because so much had happened. Sylvia only replied that she would listen to what he said. It seemed to him that the girl wanted to work like a proud knight and offered her his help. He also offered to leave the 3rd Knightly Order forever and asked if she would date him. She was shocked by what she heard. But the guy tried to calm her down by explaining that it was a deal, not an offer. Sato understood that Sylvia could not yield to the evil authorities and explained that in the future, to resist them, she would need her own power, and he wanted to help her with that. She revealed that she had trained with a sword for 13 years, starting at the age of 4. But not a single piece of justice was ever achieved. The guy thought that the best option would be for her to do something else if she lacked the talent to wield a sword. What she heard angered her, and she attacked him with a question about the fact that he didn't know how long she had been studying. The girl calmed down and agreed with him. Many say that she has no talent, but she stubbornly continued to move forward. For her, knights are fighters for justice who ride horses, wear armor, and rush onto the field during battle. Shikiro Sato advised her not to get so hung up on it, because anything can become a weapon and it is not necessary to gallantly run onto the battlefield. Sylvia realized that he was right. There was no need for all this. The girl made up her mind and accepted his deal. The guy wanted to share his dream. He wanted to become number 1 in the world, which she thought was vague and ridiculous. But when he talked about it, his eyes lit up and he smiled like a boy. Now the girl wants to help him with this, although she's sure interesting things will happen along the way. Her future has finally manifested itself. Shikiro didn't expect everything to go according to plan. Getting a broken-hearted girl drunk and then giving her hope was a dirty tactic, but it should help her. He thinks she has a talent for archery or magic. He's surprised that she's practiced fencing and achieved no results. Finding a companion nearby was important. Now they'll be safer in battle. In one day he killed 4 birds with 1 stone. The guy defeated the scarlet praying mantises. They don't seem so strong to him now, but it would be strange not to win against them given his current status. Thanks to this victory, he managed to acquire the skill of rook archery. To train Sylvia, you will need fencing skills, and you will also need to go into the dungeon for experience and items. Sylvia asked again about magical archery. Sato thought it would suit her better and that she should train in that direction. The girl's dex is 121, her int 103, and her other stats are in the double digits, making it easier for her to become a magic archer. But the girl had never even heard of such a thing. The guy explained that in any case, even if she didn't know, such a class existed and it would be better to focus on it. First, they needed to go to the library and then to the forest for training. She was very surprised to learn that he knew a lot. He was interested in what happened. Then the girl explained that techniques such as the bishop and the rook are secret and are kept secret. Nobles like to have something unavailable to commoners, and this was the reason for the low level of craftsmanship. If they discovered their secret was no longer a secret, they could execute them. When Sato was training her, she constantly exclaimed. He'd managed to level up her skills and she had no problem with it. Sylvia sighed, hoping there wouldn't be any more surprises, but he had something else in store. The guy showed her the potion and asked if she understood what it was for, but she only knew that the potions were expensive. He said that he would use them for DK tactics. The girl, as usual, exclaimed loudly, not understanding what he was talking about. The guy asks her if she wants to learn the rook technique, and she answers affirmatively. Then Sato decided to head to the dungeon and explained that they would be going to the second type of dungeon, of which there are 3, the first for experts, the second for fighters, and the third for beginners. The second was chosen because of the rewards for completing it. The boss is a flaming wolf and he drops a flaming dragon bow, which is endowed with the element of fire, and he wants to get it very much. Next, they'll work on acquiring the rook skill, and the monsters in this dungeon are perfect for it. They'll accomplish 2 tasks at once. They came across monsters and Shikiro asked her to use the skills he taught her to kill them or to combine the skill of the horse and the silver general. The monster noticed her and she fired an arrow and destroyed it. Now she wants to know if she can become strong. With DK's tactics, her stats skyrocketed and her horse and silver general skills reached first class. Sato answered her question by saying that he had given her his word to help with this. Sylvia thanked him, and then the guy notices how beautiful she is, although she looks as usual as always. About 6 hours had passed since they descended into the dungeon, and the last requirement to receive the rook remained to be fulfilled. The reason why they came to this point has already been found. It was a flaming troll with incredibly powerful attacks, but its weak point was its shiny head. A headshot using the silver general's skill would kill it, and they were lucky to have encountered 3 of them at once. Sato ordered to shoot after he gave the signal, but Sylvia wondered what he himself would do. The guy tries to calm himself down, but he understands that this is a deception. This step was necessary to help the girl, and he hopes that he will succeed. The flaming troll hit Sato and he flew back. The girl became worried about him. The guy's barely holding on. A quarter of his health has been taken away, and he's not sure he can hold out any longer. If this had been Mobian, even a severed arm would have been restored by drinking a potion, but now he thinks that was a bad idea. But the guy doesn't want to give up. He sees how the girl is waiting for the signal. Sato tries his best to persevere, bolstering himself with the knowledge that number 1 would never lose face and plans to become number 1 again in the new world. This is his life, his purpose, and he has no intention of giving up his place to anyone. The guy takes another hit and looking at his health bar sees that it has dropped significantly. He signals Sylvia to attack. When it was all over, she scolded him for his actions. She managed to acquire the rook skill. Shikiro Sato felt an incredible sense of satisfaction knowing he had managed to endure it. His life in the alternate world came to life once he had a comrade. Having recovered from the incident, they set off for the Royce dungeon where they needed to kill the boss. It was a wolf with a huge body engulfed in flames. Due to the fire barrier, he has high damage resistance and plans to keep it stunlocked. First, he attacks him with the bishop. After he aggroes, he uses the golden general. He ordered Sylvia to do the same, and they would continue this way until they killed him, and it was the perfect tactic. The Golden Bishop's Almighty Hold is a popular restraint technique for 2 or more people. It will work as a simple method, but that's not important. The important thing is that it's safe. The flaming wolf was slain. 3 weeks later, the girl learned how to shoot, and after finally killing over 100 bosses, they received the flaming wolf bow. Sylvia understands that Sato will now be even stronger with this weapon, but he replied that this bow now belongs to her. If she's planning to become a magical archer, this weapon would be perfect. She thought the bow would be too much for her, but he reassured her, explaining that he didn't need to use such a weapon as he was training in magic. She noticed that his desire to become number one was no longer a childish dream. He had a long road ahead of him, and he wanted to share his plans with her. He is interested to know if she has any connections with anyone from the Royal Academy of Magic. Knowing that she was the second daughter of the Virginia family's knightly order, Sato thought that she might have some relation to them. The study of magic involves the study of grimoires. The simplest form can be found in the library, but to obtain a grimoire for the raptor and carol forms, you must complete training at the academy. No matter how, he must infiltrate the Royal Academy, as this is the fastest way. To get there legally, there are routine formalities, and it is impossible to even imagine how long it would take. Therefore, he wanted to find another way out, thinking that maybe someone would allow him to come in, but Sylvia replied that this was impossible. Her father abandoned her because he lacked talent for the sword, and she cannot imagine him helping her. Sato offered to show him her strength, but she knew it wouldn't help because the man was so strict. He was an exceptional warrior who relied solely on his sword, and upon learning that the girl had picked up a bow, he would claim she had run away. He's hatched a plan, but Sylvia thinks it will end badly. He calls the strategy a diversionary tactic, and he'll begin executing it tomorrow. The next day, the man was already on his knees and greeting the boy. He didn't understand how it came to this. Sato decided to simply dress up as an aristocrat from a neighboring country and force him to write a letter of recommendation for the Royal Academy. He managed to deceive Sylvia's father. He really believed the lie, but the degree of misunderstanding exceeded the critical mark and he wanted to confess, but he could not give up. He explained to Noir-san that his presence must remain a secret, and Noir-san promised to keep it that way. Although he didn't believe in the plan, it worked. Even so, he couldn't lose focus. First, he asked the man to contact the Royal Academy. He replied without hesitation that he could easily do so, and if he wanted to transfer as a first year, he'd write a letter of recommendation. But transferring as a student did not suit him because of the length of the process, and he asked if there were other faster options. Then Noir suggested becoming an exchange student. It seemed like a good idea, but Shikaru Sato wanted the process to not take more than 2 days, and if he managed to get in and not find the grimoires, that would be bad. The guy asked me to resolve everything within 2 weeks and write a letter of recommendation for him. Then he asked me to fulfill one more request. He began his request by explaining his attraction to Sylvia and asking for permission to accompany her, as he saw her talent for archery and magic. Sato saw the man looking at him and thought he'd done something wrong. Noir said that her daughter was undisciplined, but if the guy turned a blind eye to this, then let him take her and asked if he was sure about her. Sato explained that although she had no talent with a sword, he was confident she would achieve worldwide fame in magic and archery. He asked for permission to leave the Third Knightly Order. The guy signed a 2-year contract with her, and after it ended, he wanted to sign another contract where Noir's help would be needed, but the man only asks if he is sure because he only wants the best for her. The guy didn't quite understand what he meant or whether he could consider this consent. He thanked the man and said he would be in their family's debt. After a week of using the tactic, having sold the flaming wolf pelts and gained experience in return, both were enjoying life. If you venture deep into the slime forest, you might find slimes that randomly drop items. The rarest item they dropped was a magical healing wand with a 0.05% drop rate. It allows for the use of healing spells from the School of Restoration, and when a budding wizard becomes a healer, this becomes useful. When used, the user receives double the effect, and skills used during healing are 2.5 times more powerful. It can restore half of one's health. Sato's knocked-out teeth were restored with an 800,000 CL restoration potion. The boy was on his way to the Royal Academy. Since neither of them were healers, they wouldn't have the double effect, but even so, it would be useful, for which he thanked the holy slime. The girl and the boy greeted Shikaru Sato, and he thanked them for taking the time to meet with them. She introduced herself as Principal Paula Memento. The man standing next to her was the homeroom teacher for Class A, joined by Second Dono Kevin. He learned that Sylvia and he would share a room, living in the house rather than the dorms, and that they had already prepared uniforms for them. Everything was going according to plan and no one seemed to suspect anything, and they needed to study the grimoires as much as possible in these 2 weeks. Kevin would teach classes in the morning and then Sato and Sylvia would have a tour in the evening. A student from their class would be the guide and Kevin was grateful for the opportunity. Although he'd planned to investigate, perhaps he'd be able to learn something this way. The class teacher wanted to introduce 2 new students who had come on a 2-week exchange to the other students. Sato introduced himself as second and said that he had come from Zapanga Island to check out the academy. The girl also introduced herself and expressed a desire to be friends with everyone. Kevin invited them to take their seats. Sato asked to introduce the student who was going to conduct the tour. He wanted to make friends with him beforehand. Kevin called the main kun to him and he responded. The guy hopes that they will get along during the excursion, to which Maine reciprocates. He warned Sylvia that they were heading to the cafeteria, and she said goodbye to the girls to go with them. Seeing the student who was supposed to give the tour, she addressed him as His Majesty. Sato did not immediately understand what was going on. Maine asked her to address him as a normal person as there was no distinction between people at this school, and she agreed. He was the first royal he'd met and his behavior was a little different from what he'd expected. Sato thought he'd be arrogant. He noticed that he was cold to the sweet Sylvia but treated him differently. Suspicions about him began to creep in. All this unsettled him and he didn't know how to reject him, so he decided to find out directly whether his suspicions were true or not. Sato asked if he had lost his way. Maine was taken aback by the question and in response asked why he asked such a question. The guy explained that he behaved differently with the girl, but with him in a special way. The shocked guy replied that he had misunderstood everything. Maine-kun was so excited when he learned that by entering the Royal Academy everyone becomes equal. Everyone saw him as a second prince no matter where he was. Only his mother sees him for who he really is. Sato added that this was a fairly common occurrence, but Sylvia considered it impolite. But the guy himself thinks that he is right. Even after he found out that Maine is a prince, he was not afraid and asked if he was on the right path. The lack of politeness meant nothing. Shikaru wants to know about grimoires and asks a student about them. The ones within the academy's walls, the raptor form, can be found in the library, as can the coral form, but access requires permission from the librarian. It turns out there's a 4th form, which Sato didn't know about. She was there, but she was kept in the royal palace, and Maine-kun saw her only once. During the tour, they came across a closed library. Any student is allowed to enter and study the books. After finishing his tour, he said goodbye to them and left, and by then the boys' shoulders were already aching. Other students passing by were discussing the 2 new exchange students. To them, they seemed intimidated. They noticed that Maine had become friendly with the newcomers and called him a bookworm with an Oedipal complex. They were irritated by his arrogant look and the way he talked to other students, and they believed this was the reason for his loneliness. Sato can't believe the boy could be so lonely and subjected to indirect bullying. He decides to become his friend and perhaps establish connections with the Castal royal family in the future. Then he discovers that Maine is using money to improve his grades. They don't like the fact that they're trying so hard and Maine is learning unfairly, which is starting to irritate them more and more. They think that anyone who hangs out with him is becoming just as trash as he is. Sylvia interrupted their conversation, demanding an explanation of who they were talking about. The boy said he meant the girl from Class F and she misunderstood them. That student was incompetent and a beastman. Sylvia asked them to tell her why they considered her and second dono trash, and they replied that they would understand if they were allowed to tell. But it was too late. Justice has prevailed. Sato remembered who they were talking about and decided to remember this girl. The next day in the library, he asked for a grimoire of the raptor form of all elements. They asked him to wait a little. She wondered if he'd finished studying the books. After leafing through 3 more grimoires, he handed them over to her. Sylvia wondered, realizing that for him, this was just another day. She has a hard time remembering all this and asks to tell about some tricks. But Sato hated tricks, secrets, and everything associated with them. In his previous life, newcomers constantly asked questions like, "Tell me a few secrets on how to level up quickly," or a few requirements for becoming stronger. And now these words got to him in the new world, but now it wasn't so annoying. Sylvia was afraid that if she didn't learn all this in time, Shikaru would leave her, so putting aside her pride, she asked for advice. It was different from the internet world. It was much more difficult here because now he was happy to know that the girl was counting on him. He'd originally planned to read them separately, but plans changed and now he could help her. It was the first time Sato felt wise when he began teaching her. Unfortunately, he sounded too abstruse when he explained it, which was because the grimoires were written in a complex and abstruse manner. It would have been better to learn all of this in practice. The guy was trying to explain everything that was necessary to Sylvia, when in the middle of the conversation he asked if she should remember everything, to which he heard an affirmative answer. It was the only thing he knew in life, but no one else knew so much about Mobian. Knowledge that would have been of no use in real life now had enormous significance. The student complimented Sato by saying that he was handsome, but he didn't immediately understand what she was saying to him. She introduced herself as Iko Leaflet, and he realized she was the girl the students had been talking about. The guy introduced himself as second. Then Sylvia did the same. Iko was glad to meet her. The guy found it strange that such a harmless girl could be bullied, and he decided to ask her if she had any problems, but the girl didn't understand what he was talking about. Then Sato pretended that he didn't know anything and offered his help if necessary. He wonders why she carries these books. It turns out she is asked to do this. Based on this, one can understand that she is an errand girl. He's surprised that Iko is carrying them alone, but she thinks she's strong enough. Shikaru insists that the girl contact him if anything happens and asks her to be honest. She thanked him for the offer and said that she could handle it herself. This is one of the things she is good at, and she sincerely believes that the more she helps others, the more they will start to love her. She looked honest, but these were all amplification mechanisms that would never be connected. Iko believed in this, and Sato himself remembered such pain. Even if you play the game, it doesn't affect anything. Even if you become number one, it won't change anything either, and wasting your life on something like that would be pointless. The guy is surprised by how pointless his efforts were. He considered himself complete trash and an idiot. As soon as he realized this, he died. And he woke up in a new world, which was a miracle for him. Such a hopeless man was saved. He is interested to know if the same miracle will happen to her. He understands how she feels and wants to help. Sato wonders if she's really that weak. Even though she's a beastman, Iko was able to enroll in such a prestigious academy. The Royal Academy is the most elite. If you get in, you're practically a master of magic. He doesn't know what to do next. After a night of deliberation, he decides he needs to recruit Iko Leaflet and tells Sylvia about it. But Sato doubted she'd give her consent. If she didn't, he'd show her strength and offer a few tips. But ahead, the girl noticed something. They froze in amazement, and Sylvia ran up to Iko, asking what had happened. He had a bad feeling. He knew something had broken inside her. The guy personally wanted to know what happened to her, but the girl shouted that she was fine and asked him not to talk to her. Sato realized that this was the worst of all feelings, the feeling of despair. Shouting out to keep them from approaching her, Iko ran away from them. He didn't know the whole situation, but he clearly understood that she realized that her efforts were useless. She was forced to bring dirt to be poured on her, then everyone laughed at her. The girl was forced to come face to face with the real life to which she had until now turned a blind eye, even if lying to herself would not have helped. Shikaru wants to save her. They pursue her, but the girl still tries to break away from them. After an hour of pursuit, Sylvia was exhausted, but Iko still had stamina left. He explained that he just wanted to talk to her, but she continued to resist, asking him to leave her alone. But leaving her now would mean failure, and then it would get even worse. They all continue to follow her without lagging behind. Sato noticed that she is slow, but strong with a low magical attack. He asked the girl not to interfere, waved his sword, and extended his left hand. Iko did not understand what he was going to do. With one swing, he cut off his own hand. Sylvia wanted to run up, but the guy ordered her to stay put. If he manages to win the girl over to his side, it will bring him closer to his goal. Sato told her that she had more talent for restorative magic and asked her to take the restorative wand to heal him. He suspects that Iko is most likely a paladin, but the girl resists because she does not believe him. The guy asks her to hurry up because he is in unbearable pain, but she resists because of her insecurity. He doesn't want to listen to any objections from her. He wants her to just take the wand and cure him. Pointing it towards Sato, she cast a spell. His arm returned to normal. Iko couldn't believe what she had done, and at that moment he fell down without strength. In his new world, even after his health bar had been restored from damage, his physical condition did not immediately return to normal. He figured out Iko was a paladin while pursuing her. She was slow, strong, and had good stamina. Being a failure at the academy, it could be assumed she had low magic attack. These factors perfectly matched a paladin's personality. Since her magical attack was weak, magic wasn't a good fit for her. Her agility was low, and archery wasn't suitable either. Although her strength was stable, her maneuverability was weak, making it impossible for her to maneuver. Given all this, it seems the girl is completely hopeless. But high-level players choose this type. Among all famous teams, there is always one paladin. They channel their high HP, SB, stamina, and VIT to create a shield and become a protection for their allies. Paladins absorb all damage, and as soon as they begin to suffer from it, they heal themselves. If Sato turns her into a paladin, he'll have Iko, a well-rounded hero, and a magical archer on his team. This will allow him to create a complete team. He is close to becoming number one, and all that came to mind was the desire to get Iko on his team, no matter what. Sato has been trying to use her ever since he found her useful, and he already did something similar with Sylvia, using the emptiness in her heart. He overdid it trying to get her attention, but somehow managed not only to pull her in but also persuade her to join the group. He wants the girl to follow him and asks her to do so in his mind. Sylvia asked him not to overexert himself. If he lost his arm, he wouldn't have accomplished his goal. Sato explained that it was his left arm that was injured, not the right one she was holding. She asked him if he had had the same nightmare. The guy asked her not to worry about him. But the girl is outraged because these should have been her words. Thanks to him, she and Iko were saved. It was he who helped them. Sylvia was absolutely hopeless, and Second Dono saved her. She asks him not to worry. For him, the girl will become a knight, and will even follow him to the ends of the earth. Shikaru suspects that Sylvia heard his conversations in his sleep, but also thinks that she might have figured out his plans. Even with his attempts to take advantage of her and even the unpleasant feeling he had, he could not believe that she would agree to take responsibility. Iko burst into his room and rushed to him asking for forgiveness. Sato explains to her that healing magic is perfect for her, and he asks her to quit school and join him. This was the very moment when he could benefit from her. The guy was sure it would work. She was delighted, realizing she could help. He had no doubt about it. The girl's expression changed and she hesitated. Sato immediately realized she had a reason for refusing. She was born far from the capital in a village of beastmen. Her father boasted about her absurdly large amount of mana as a child, and the villagers began to hope that she had a talent for witchcraft. The villagers collected the required amount of gold for her admission to the Royal Academy. They thought that if Iko became an outstanding sorceress, she would help the village. But how did she manage to do that? The only thing she lacked was magical attack, while she learned theory easily. She also mastered the form of a predator of the elements of wind-earth, but even so, she did not have half the capabilities of other students and remained a failure. Iko could not let the residents down, and this was the reason for her refusal. They created an unbearable burden with their expectations that weighed heavily on the poor girl. Sato had already prepared a rescue plan. She could escape, and she had a perfect opportunity. She asked again what opportunity he was talking about, but the guy simply asked her not to worry about it. Shikiro said that he plans to become number one in the world, and whether Iko understands what that means. This meant being the best of the best, with no one stronger than him, and the girl would become his ally. Nothing could be more prestigious. Being a mage at the royal court was commonplace. He's confident the villagers will rejoice for 3 days and 3 nights after learning of her success. They'll erect a statue in the middle of the village and spin legends, and at the sight of it, they'll prostrate themselves. She agreed to go with him. Iko Leaflet, a paladin and beastman, became his ally. Director, she asked to give her some time. Sato asked how long she would have to wait. After meeting with the staff at lunch, she would resolve their issue. The guy replied that he would expect good news from her. Sylvia wonders why he asked the director. He understands that it didn't sound entirely plausible, but he believed that he would succeed. She doesn't understand his confidence. The boy explained that he was an exchange student and, moreover, a distinguished foreigner who had witnessed the persecution of a beastman. The girl understood that Zipan was a country that welcomed beastmen. They'll think it's a problem, and even if they do nothing, it will leave a bad impression. Besides, the staff won't lift a finger if they point out the bullying is being covered up. And they won't want any more problems and will solve everything in the best possible way, so they will agree to his request. Main-kun learned that Iko would be Second's companion. Only Second, curious to know how the boy had learned of this so quickly, praised her as a healer and explained that the school's inability to see this speaks volumes. The class teacher was looking for them. He reported that they agreed to fulfill Sato's request. Starting today, Iko Leaflet will be in Class A as Second's escort. He was happy to hear this. Kevin didn't question why Sato decided to do everything this way because he was quite perceptive, but even if he had asked about it, he would have bombarded him with sarcastic answers. But Sylvia didn't understand why she was now in the same class with them, and the girl herself was interested in why he decided this. It was easier to say that it would be easier to protect the girl, but the truth was different. Sato wanted revenge on those who bullied Iko, who herself did not want it. Her only desire was to be near him. He replied that she was his comrade. Since they were only exchange students and time was limited, Sylvia needed to learn everything she needed to quickly. After a week of training, his efforts began to bear fruit, and Sylvia managed to master the fire element of her predator form in 3 days. She also learned a trick, after which they borrowed all the books about the 4 elements of the curl form, and Sato himself had to learn it. That's roughly how they spent their last few days. From the outside, it might seem like Shikiro was idle the entire time, but his goal was to gain Main's trust. The goal was almost achieved. There was still a little more to go. All this is necessary because of the grimoire of the 4th form. It was Main-kun who told them that they are in the royal palace. The Uljin-ranked dungeon had a 10% chance of dropping a grimoire, and it was considered the easiest of all the other rank 1 caves. Even so, it was a difficult task for the girls, which is why Sato decided to use Main. Iko wasn't particularly literate, and she struggled with the Japanese used in the world. In Mobian, the beastmen spoke their own language, suggesting that she taught herself Japanese. Even if she looks like an idiot, Iko might actually be smart enough. He asked her to hand him the piece of paper she was holding. It was written about a witchcraft convention, which seemed to be an annual event. The winner was given a prize in the form of a ring of persecution. He excitedly told Iko that they were going to a magical convention. Despite the item's name suggests it's powerful, after casting the double attack spell, the chance to inflict an additional attack is 10%. It seems simple, but it's actually a powerful effect. The ring can be upgraded 3 times using the power of a high-ranking blacksmith, giving it even more powerful abilities. After the 3rd upgrade, the chance of an additional attack increases by 25%. It's hard to believe such an item would be lying around on the road, and it costs 1.5 billion CL. This price was in Mobian. In reality, the price at Second is unknown. He wants to get the ring at any cost. They're lucky because the witchcraft convention will be held on the last day of the student program. If such a foreigner, for whom grimoires mean nothing, uses the forms of a coral and a predator, suspicions will arise. The day before the convention, Sato asks Main-kun if he will go there. Being the second prince, he was obliged to be there, and he asked a counter question. Sato said that he was also going to go. Sylvia was surprised why she didn't know this. The boy wondered why the Main-kun had no strong desire to participate in the royal convention, and then he discovered the reason was his brother. Sato thought he disliked his brother, but they simply didn't get along. His brother is a talented suprematist, and Main himself is a gifted magician, which is why he looks down on his younger brother. Moreover, he considers him a rival in the fight for the throne, and the real reason for his visit is the public humiliation of the Main-kun. Shikiro realized he was one of those high-ranking thugs from the knightly order who had bullied Sylvia. The boy suggested skipping the convention, but Main knew he'd hear from his brother how incompetent and cowardly he was. Sato now understands how difficult it is to be a prince. Sylvia had prepared the news for him that she had mastered her carol form this morning, but he wondered why he hadn't known about it. She only replied that it was because he didn't even ask her. Royal Convention Day. The assembled guys are discussing the event, and many of them aren't sure what the prize ring will be. Last year, the 50th anniversary was celebrated, but nothing worthwhile happened then, and this time there are fewer participants and the rules have been revised. One of them told a rumor that His Highness would be present at the Congress, and a rumor that Main-kun did not get along with him. They found out that his older brother was beating him up, calling it a demonstration, which made the boys laugh. A rumor about the battle between the first and second prince will form in every corner of the academy. Although it is unnatural, Sato feels that the reason is Main himself. He feels like Klaus is manipulating him using their reputation. The Main Kun himself approached the boy. The guy, having learned that he'll skip the line, will hope he doesn't run into him before the final. Main, however, wants them to meet at the very end. The royal convention is held in a tournament style. Second is on the right and Main is on the left. The latter needs 1 win to move up and Sato needs 2, but there is something he doesn't know. He clarified what needed to be done. He was shocked that the guys signed up without knowing what was going on at the convention, but Shikiro thought that they just needed to destroy each other with magic. But this was not the case, and he suggested that they needed to destroy each other, but without magic. The Witchcraft Congress is held with the royal crown. This item allows the competition to be held without risk to life. This is all because everything inside is happening imaginary. Oz, incoming and outgoing damage are also imaginary. Even if the health bar drops to the very bottom, the competition simply ends and everything returns to normal, which is why many consider this type of battle for cowards. But some found it appealing for its freedom, and many competitions were created that deviated from the classic understanding of the word. The only requirement was that the attacks had to be magical. Upon learning this, Sato considered the game a complete bummer. The third match between second from Class A and Dan from Class F has begun. A circle with a radius of 50 meters is the playing field, and anyone who goes beyond it loses. The referee asks everyone to get ready to begin. Fight has begun. From the color and design of the magic the opponent uses, it can be deduced that he is using the Wind Predator form, and to Sato, this seems like a stupid decision. Opa form is a normal attack, Predator form is an area attack, and Carol form is a directional attack. The fourth attack form is a strong area attack, and the fifth is an incredibly strong area attack, and their casting time increases starting from the first. If damage is dealt while the spell is being cast, it will be cancelled, which means that starting from the Predator form, other attacks will be useless. He thinks that Den-kun is trying to fool him, or decided that he heard a rumor that Sato can't use magic. Second used the Opa form to attack, as expected, and the opponent used the Wind Predator form. There's a special feature when magical forces clash, a defensive technique that requires canceling an attack. You might take some damage, but recovery is much faster than in Predator form. Sato uses the Fire Curl form. It is in the 5th grade, which is why the casting time is reduced by 2 stages, and the attack power is 300% of the intelligence level. He used a lot of force and defeated his opponent, but he wanted to play with Denchik a little longer. The judge declared second Dono the winner. When the competition ends, the arena returns to its original state, as if nothing had happened. He told his teammates about his victory. Iko was beside herself with joy, but Sylvia noticed he'd overdone it. But for him this is nothing. As soon as they take the prize they will immediately run away. The girl understands this, but asks to be careful. Sato does not like that she imagines herself as a mother. The second match of the semifinals has arrived. With second facing off against Keith from Class A, the winner will advance to the finals against Main. He understands that the opponent is not simple. In such a competition, the outcome depends on who attacks first. And it makes sense to use the Opa form. Both competitors used this form and attacked. Everything is heading towards a dead end because the magic created at the same time will collide with each other, transporting them back to the very beginning. This is the reason why this game sucks for Sato. Keith asked for his surrender in exchange for a reward. He couldn't allow himself to fight Main. The enemy planned to give him victory so the boy could face his older brother. Only the competition between Main and Klaus makes sense. They've built a political agenda into this fight. Kate understands that second won't give up easily. He realized that the enemy was Klaus's lackey and had been hired specifically to give the Main Kun victory. His older brother would take advantage of this and beat him up. Sato is dissatisfied with negotiations in such a hopeless situation and the efforts to force him to surrender for the sake of a supposed good cause. They continue to fight using the same Opa form. The guy understands that the enemy is perfectly prepared for such attacks and that things will not go further if they continue like this. He will take this opportunity and show everyone a real battle. Shikiro Sato asked Sylvia to look at him carefully and shot an arrow from his bow at Keita. Magical shooting is one of the wonderful attacks using magic, roughly speaking. arrows from witchcraft are pulled on a bow and real ones do not have to be used. Sato clarified the first prince's true purpose. Competitions that use magical attacks suck, but Prince Klaus probably has a way around that rule. Noir explained that he was a swordsman and likely used magical fencing. As long as Klaus had that trump card, he would never lose to Maine and would be able to easily punch him and not get hit back. It was a low-level shot, and he wanted to show Keith what would happen if the two brothers fought. He stabilized his aim with Knight's Arrow, increased his power with Silver General's Arrow, and boosted his momentum with Choral Form. The boy tried to escape, but Shikaru wouldn't let him. By hitting it he will win, which the referee announced. Klaus will have to change his plans. He now wants to annex second, which will leave his younger brother looking like a fool. Kate warns him that the boy is strong, but the first prince is confident that he won't listen to her refusal, as he is the first commander of the knightly order. The guy couldn't imagine that there could be someone in the academy who could combine magic. For him, he would become an excellent pawn. They moved on to the finale, and Maine-kun now knows how strong second is. The guy is worried that because he hid this fact, he could start to despise him. But on the contrary, Maine-kun began to respect him even more. Then Sato decided to ask to be taken to the royal palace next time, and the judge announced the start of the competition. Both began their attack using the Opa-Opa technique. It was obvious the guy wouldn't use any shortcuts against a man who knew nothing but witchcraft. He noticed that Maine-kun wanted to interrupt the attack and take everything back to the very beginning, but his expectations were not immediately met, and he cancelled the spell. The boy forcibly changed the timing of the spell. If you attack an enemy while casting a spell, their attack will be interrupted. If you start casting while attacking, you will be stopped. The Maine-kun used the wind choral form. Shikaru's higher rank allows him to cast the spell faster. Even if he starts later, both will simultaneously summon the form. The look on Maine-kun's face was unseen in PvP. It literally said this was his ace in the hole. Sato himself underestimated the second prince and scolded others for such behavior, but he still made the same mistake. The boy notices that the boy is serious and will respectfully respond in kind. He uses the ultimate magic from Mobius Online with dignity. Sato summoned a fire curl form, and Maine summoned a wind curl form. At this distance, it was out of range, even without measuring it. Thanks to Shikaru's experience, he knew this. He didn't even prepare the attack form of the curl. The Maine-kun hesitated and realized that second was moving for the next strike. He did not see the magical outlines. The guy explained what could be used in this way. Magic could be used to conceal the next step. Next, Sato used Earth Predator form, which is a powerful area effect spell with a long casting time, but the effect was worth it. He summoned a wall to restrict the enemy's movement. These are the very basics of learning magical combat. Next, he used the water curl form. The Maine-kun laughed and admitted his defeat. But Shikaro Sato is unhappy and doesn't understand why he's laughing. For Maine, a second is strong, but the guy knows that this is not true. Even if his curl form was level 5, he would have lost. The boy can't believe his words. Sato asks angrily if he was angry after losing to an opponent who looked down on him. He replied that it wasn't very strong, but the guy asked me not to lie, at least to myself, and if he doesn't get angry here, he will remain that way for the rest of his life. His older brother joined the conversation and supported Second's words, adding that his brother was a coward and he was already tired of repeating it every time. He invited the guy to join him because he saw talent in him. If Sato was under Klaus's supervision, it would mean a sure guarantee of receiving a position in the upper echelon of the First Knightly Order, and if the first prince climbed even higher, he would rise after him. If he declines the offer, it could be considered a voluntary agreement to choose the first prince as an enemy. Everyone would think it impossible to refuse. But Sato's answer was no. Hearing this answer, Klaus angrily asked for it to be repeated. The guy refused again. But that's okay because he foresaw everything. When the older brother couldn't beat all the bad out of his brother, he would have come to Second with a proposal. He knew it would happen, especially since he's the leader of a suspicious order. Klaus thinks that he wants to join him, but for some reason refuses. Sato explained that he had made a promise to Maine to go with him to the royal palace. This promise made it clear that he had managed to cooperate with the second prince, and the judge was a witness to what was happening. Klaus asked him and he confirmed Second's words. A contract was made between the second prince and Shikaru Sato. If the first prince tried to interfere, it would be a public recruitment, which would lead to a breach of etiquette. Klaus, cursing Meina, headed towards Palamamento. She tried to calm him down, but he ordered her to shut her mouth and give all the documentation to Second Dono. He was not happy because it only contained information about his stay at the academy. The director confirmed that the guy was still a secret, and even the island nation where he came from was unknown. Having received nothing, he left the office in a rage. Paula had heard how temperamental he was, but now he's thinking of keeping a closer eye on Second. After receiving the prize in the form of a ring, the guys ran away, and somehow the guy's plan to obtain magic was fulfilled. The guy announces to the girls his current goal, namely gaining experience. The girl asks if they will go to Royce's dungeon, to which the guy replies that they will go to another one. The guy explains more about the dungeon and also mentions the Eco shield that can be obtained from the boss. The guy plans to put Eco on the front lines, which surprises the girl. The group goes to the store to buy equipment for Echo, then they go to the library so she can learn swordsmanship. After this, the company went to the church to study the grimoires. Finally, after all these preparations, the company went into the dungeon. Eco mastered the art of the sword with ease, and within a few days began to clearly describe herself as a paladin. The monster attacks the girl, but she covers herself with a shield. Thanks to the shield art, Eco's health and defense have increased, and now the boy believes that it is time for the next shield art. On the way, they meet a monster, and the guy asks the girl to follow his commands, and then they will not lose. Eco agrees and steps forward. The guy remembers the conditions for obtaining the bishop's shield art and understands that Eco should not receive a single point of damage. Eco will have to reflect attacks or parry them and use a shield at the right moment. The boy gives the girl commands, which she immediately carries out. Suddenly the turtle strikes because they have slowed down. The girl doesn't give up and gets up, ready to continue the fight. She assures him she can do it and will use the treatment to restore her health. The monster attacks again, but she uses her shield and eventually wins. The guy offers Sylvia to learn magical shooting, and the girl happily agrees. Eco asks what about her, to which the guy says that she will fight against the turtle to get a special shield. The three head to the dungeon. The boy suggests that Sylvia begin her training with combined marksmanship and magic. A monster appears and the guy suggests that Eco use the bishop's shield art. The girl is pleasantly surprised by the results. This shield art has a defense-enhancing effect, making it both protective and empowering. Suddenly, the baby starts crying, leaving the boy slightly confused. It turns out that Echo is simply happy to finally be useful. Sylvia learned the combination skill and decided to try it out right away. The guy is confident in the girl, and she takes the shot. The girl kills the monster with one shot, which amazes her. At home, a guy approaches a girl and insistently tells her he wants to do it. The girl misunderstands the guy and becomes embarrassed. The guy says that they must become stronger. The guy assures that enhanced equipment is very important for each of the girls and asks how much damage Sylvia does. The guy assures that if she strengthens her bow, she will be able to deal 4 times more damage than she currently does. The guy says there are 4 possible paths. First, they create a team and register with a guild. Second, they seek out and recruit people who can master blacksmithing. Third, they recruit a working blacksmith. And the fourth option, which the guy considers the best, is to offer the girl a slave. The guy was already prepared for the girl to get angry, but she, on the contrary, thought about his proposal. In the end, they decide to visit the slave trader tomorrow. The next day, the company visits the slave trader Philip. The young man gets straight to the point and says he's looking for a slave blacksmith. Several male slaves are brought into the room, and the guy begins to understand why Sylvia is not angry. Philip asks if the guy has caught his eye, to which he asks for a little more time to think about it. The guy is thinking about what kind of blacksmith they need. After some thought, he realizes there's no suitable candidate. Philip says that only the criminal slaves remain, but the boy doesn't care because there's a blacksmith among them. The guy asks to see the slaves, but unfortunately they can't bring any. He asks the girls to stay in the room while he goes to choose a slave. The guy enters the cells and at one glance understands who is not suitable. He notices a secure camera, and Philip opens it to satisfy the guy's interest. An elven girl appears behind the door. According to Philip, she is an assassin who previously served the Duchess. Philip explains that the girl is talented, however, she was assigned the peacefulness item, which is why she can no longer attack. The guy asks the girl to show her characteristics. He carefully studies the characteristics and then asks about her skills. Finally, the guy decides she's suitable and asks the price. He ends up buying her. Philip draws up a slave contract between a boy and an elf. The guy carefully studies the contract and notices one clause. He asks if it can be changed. Unfortunately, this clause cannot be changed since it is a government decree, but the guy still signs the contract. The guy asks the elf's name, but it turns out that she doesn't have one. The guy decides to come up with a name for her and thinks about it. Finally, he chooses the name Yukari, and the girl agrees with him. The guy introduces himself to the girl and then leads her to his friends. Sylvia is very surprised that the slave turns out to be a girl. The boy introduces Yukari to the girls. While Sylvia is upset about the current situation, Iko meets Yukari. Having finally introduced Yukari to everyone, the group returns to the city for further discussions. On the way to the city, the guy asked the girl about a lot of things, but Yukari turned out to be not very talkative. The guy asks Yukari to tell him about his past in order to get to know her better. To his regret, the girl refuses and leaves. The guy believes that the girl's behavior depends on her past, which she is trying to hide. The guy feels as if he once experienced the same feelings as Yukari. The guy thinks he and the girl have a lot in common. He thinks she's worried about not being accepted if she tells someone something. Having finished his thoughts, the guy says that it's time for dinner. At dinner, the guy suggests that the girls create a group, but remembers that he forgot to tell the new girl about the team's goals. The guy talks about his goals, to which the girl says that she will help if she can. Sylvia asks how the guy plans to become #1 in the world, and the guy starts explaining that he needs to win every title fight. The guy explains in more detail using the example of shooting. To earn the title, you need to level up each skill. Also, if you win in the title fight, you will be rewarded with a fight against the current title holder. The guy asks if Sylvia is familiar with the title fight, to which she replies that she is. She's surprised that the guy wants to take part in it. Yukari says that becoming #1 is impossible because it is impossible to become that powerful. She thinks the guy shouldn't talk so easily in his head. The guy tries to find out why the girl thinks this way. But the girl decides to refrain from answering and takes her leave. The guy begins to think about what Yukari wanted to say. Sylvia considers the girl dangerous, to which the guy says that she is simply morally unstable. The boy shares his thoughts about Yukari with Sylvia, to which she replies that women have conflicting feelings. Sylvia notices that Iko has fallen asleep and carries her to her room. Thanks to the formation of the team, the company was able to enter the 3rd-tier dungeon. They went into the dungeon to complete a team quest. Monsters appear and the guy remembers that the dungeon's nickname is the Kick-Ass Dungeon. The monsters turn out to be goblins and Sylvia immediately prepares to shoot. The girl easily defeats the goblin. Meanwhile, little Iko runs towards the enemies to attack. The baby takes out all the monsters at once, surprising Yukari. Finally, the dungeon boss appears with his assistants. Iko, with a sweet face, asks what their strategy is, to which the guy, unable to resist, immediately comes up with one. The guy gives Sylvia a command, and meanwhile Iko happily runs to the boss. The little one uses a shield to defend herself from the boss's attacks, while Sylvia attacks the boss's minions. Finally, the guy attacks the boss himself and kills him. Sylvia finished with the boss's assistance, but for some reason the quest wasn't over yet. The guy looks around and notices another goblin. The goblin, meanwhile, begins to aim at Yukari. The guy quickly runs up to the girl and protects her by attacking the goblin. Suddenly, both of them are transported somewhere due to the goblin's magic. The guy tells more about the accidental teleportation. The point is that if a goblin mage uses teleportation magic, the destination can be 4 or more kilometers from the dungeon. The guy completely forgot about it while going through the dungeon, and now he and Yukari are in an unknown place. The girl is shocked by everything that is happening. The guy asks not to worry and explains that they were simply teleported. The guy uses the group chat feature and contacts Sylvia, who immediately yells at him. The guy explains the whole situation and gives the girl a few days rest until she and Yukari return. The guy decides that during the journey he will try to open Yukari's soul, and in the meantime he thinks about the route to the city. The girl notes that the guy is already familiar with a similar situation. The guy can't resist and asks directly what kind of town the girl is trying to hide, to which the girl replies that there are still a few things that she is not yet ready to reveal. The guy starts to push the girl so that she finally shows at least some emotions. The guy realizes that the tactic is working and continues talking to the girl. The guy asks the girl to be honest, assuring her that keeping secrets is pointless. Finally, the girl starts to get angry and says that she is keeping this secret for the sake of the kindness of the lady. The girl believes that such a superficial person as the guy does not deserve to be her master. She believes that as long as he covers for girls behind their backs, he will never become number one. Soon day turned to night and night to morning. The girl remained on guard all night, making sure the boy didn't touch her. On the third day, she no longer had the strength to keep an eye on the guy due to fatigue and drowsiness. The guy notices the girl's actions. He's convinced she doesn't know that as long as the contract is in effect, he can't harm her. He believes that the Yukari were brainwashed and that Lady Lucia was to blame for this. The guy has no choice but to make Yukari show her feelings, but it's damn difficult. Suddenly, the guy is pierced with a sword, and the girl is grabbed by some bandits. They take the girl, leaving the guy's body, thinking that he is dead. But suddenly, the guy gets up. They couldn't even handle half the damage, but they gave the guy a great opportunity. The girl sees the boy's lifeless body and thinks he was too slow to react. She thinks she'll be nothing more than a toy, after which she'll be sold. She feels sick just thinking that she will end her life like this. Suddenly she remembered the past, namely the meeting with the lady. Lucia says that the girl must work hard to become useful. In order to become stronger, the girl underwent special assassin training. The last thing Yukari remembers is the mistress casting some kind of spell, after which the girl loses consciousness. The mistress was executed for plotting a rebellion, and this was the mistress the girl respected and who became a mother figure to her. And only now does she understand what it means to be brainwashed. Meanwhile, the guys start to bully the girl, kicking her in the stomach. The girl understands that her memory of her bloody past and all her murders was deliberately erased. The girl can't take it anymore and starts screaming, which surprises the thieves and they think she's gone crazy. The guys decide to tie her mouth so that she doesn't accidentally bite off her tongue. Meanwhile, the guy finds a hut in which there are thieves and a girl. He takes aim and kills 2 guards near the door. The guy carefully approaches the hut and 2 more guys come out of it, hearing the noise. The guy immediately attacks and kills both of them. He enters the hut and kills 3 more bandits with 1 blow. He uses fencing and defeats several more thieves. The remaining thief calls the boy a bloodthirsty creature. Meanwhile, the boy notices the girl's emotions and realizes the brainwashing spell has been reversed. The thief suddenly grabs the girl and holds a knife to her throat. He then orders the boy to drop the sword. The guy throws away the sword and using magic sets the thief's head on fire, causing him to abandon the girl. In the end, the guy grabs the sword and kills the thief. He approaches the girl, asking if everything is okay, then extends his hand and invites her to leave. Both look out the window where dawn is already beginning to break. The guy apologizes because he believes the girl is in danger because of him. The girl apologizes in turn. The guy surprises the girl by saying that he already knows about brainwashing. They both head back to the city and decide to talk on the way. The girl begins to tell them about her past. The girl, with tears in her eyes, says that the mistress never loved her, but only deceived her. The girl decides to tell about the execution of Duchess Lucia. The girl says that she was the mistress's shadow and that she was brainwashed to prevent her from telling anything. The guy expresses his opinion to the girl. Yukari doesn't believe it, but the guy assures her that the washing could have been done to protect the girl. The guy claims the girl was created as a slave, but she disagrees. He also says the wash can only be used on a person once. The guy starts explaining how brainwashing works. His reasoning is true, but also a little false. The guy invites the girl to escape from captivity. The guy offers the girl to illegally escape slavery, and as a bonus, lift the ban on fighting. The girl agrees to the guy's proposal, trusting him. The guy tells Yukari to headbutt him, but according to the contract, she can't do that. But the guy says she can do it. Yukari hesitantly hits the guy in the chest with her head. She is shocked that she was able to hit him. She can't believe what's happening and that the guy went to all this for her. The guy asks if she trusts him, to which he receives a positive answer. Finally, the couple reach the port city. The young man ponders the Duchess, whom the minister killed. He can't shake the feeling that there's a dark secret behind this incident. The boy realizes that he cannot ignore the existence of the king if he wants to become number one. The young man is obliged to solve the mystery for the sake of his goal and a bright future. He promises the girl that he will deal with the minister. The girl says that there is no point in throwing around such promises, but she seems happy. Soon they finally return to the city. Sylvia was angry because it took them so long to get back, but Iko greeted them with hugs. Sylvia and Yukari exchange silent glances. The girls go off to the side to whisper in private. Iko asks for the dungeon plan, but unfortunately, it's too late. To keep her from getting upset, the guy suggests discussing the raid plan over dinner. Second now sets the goal of getting as much experience as possible to level up Yukari. Yukari reminds him that they still don't have a team name. Sylvia wants to suggest one, but Yukari immediately declines. Yukari also offers her own option. The guy gives Iko the choice, but the baby is already asleep. In the end, Second names the team himself. Under the influence of alcohol, he chose a rather daring name. The next day, they went to the second-tier dungeon, where Sylvia and Iko bravely fought against monsters. The guy is happy to be back in the dungeon, when he suddenly remembers that he didn't check Yukari's stats at all. The girl's characteristics turn out to be quite good. The guy says that if the girl becomes a good blacksmith, he can forget about improving his combat skills. He also says that thanks to her, his dream has become closer. Yukari decides that she will become the #1 blacksmith in the world. The girl smiles and the guy is happy that they became friends. After 2 weeks of routine life, something unexpected happened. Iko thought that Yukari wanted to steal her shield, but the girl just wanted to improve it. The girl asks to give her a shield, but the little girl refuses. Iko apologizes for her behavior. Sylvia points out that the little girl misunderstood, thinking they were trying to take away her gift. The girl improves the sword and the guy notices that when she is happy or embarrassed, her ears begin to turn red. Sylvia asks why they need to change the dungeon, and the guy starts to explain. There are 3 reasons for this. The first is to gain experience, the second is to craft equipment, and the third is gold. The guy decides that they will save up for a house, which surprises the girls. The guy sets a goal of 50 billion, which they will achieve with the help of alchemy, and the girls have questions. Sylvia asks why exactly that amount, to which the guy says that his house should be twice as expensive as the most expensive house. Yukari asks about alchemy and the guy explains in detail, mentioning the Proline dungeon. Sylvia notes that this dungeon has not yet been found and wonders how Second knows so much. The guy realizes that he said too much. The guy thinks about whether to tell the girls the truth, but still can't decide. Sylvia asks the guy to tell her about himself if he doesn't mind. Unfortunately, the guy says that he will never be able to reveal his secret to anyone. The guy asks for forgiveness and says that he will take this secret with him to the grave. The girl is not against the guy's decision, but still, if the guy changes his mind, let her tell him. The team heads to the town of blacksmiths to find buyers for the mithril alloy. Unfortunately for the guy, all potential buyers refused. The guy asks Yukari what to do, to which the girl suggests first building a reputation. And he'll have to join the Adventurers Guild, which the guy isn't too happy about. He has bad memories of the guild from his past life. The guy has no choice since it is unknown what the guild can do to them if they go on a raid without registering. As a result, the team goes to the guild where they register. The guy, like the team, is assigned the lowest rank, which leaves him dissatisfied. He begins to get frustrated that everything isn't going according to plan. Suddenly, the guy is distracted by a group of guys. They assure him that the guy should be grateful to them since he's new. The guy is no pushover and starts to give a verbal rebuff. As a result, the opponent starts to get angry, but the guy apparently doesn't care. The man starts to swing when suddenly Iko enters the fight. The little girl gets hit on the head without even feeling it, but breaks a couple of the man's fingers. This man's friends also start to get angry and want to attack, but they don't have time because Yukari skillfully ties them up. Sylvia, ready to attack, says that there is no role for her, but remembers the fire kick. The team eventually left the guild. On the way, the boy noticed his legs were shaking slightly. The guy understands that if he hadn't restrained himself, he could have killed everyone or even worse. Already lying on his hotel bed, Second understands that becoming #1 will be difficult. Over breakfast, a boy suggests they go to the Proline dungeon. Yukari points out that the guild is unlikely to approve. The girl explains why the guild might be upset, but the guy thinks it's a lie. She also reminds him that mithril doesn't only drop from bosses. Sylvia offers to join the mass raid, but the guy is not sure that their group will be accepted. The boy understands they have no other choice. Yukari, however, believes they must help the guild so they can participate in mass raids in the future. The guy asks if they could go on a raid themselves if they had a higher rank, to which the girl says that it is possible. The guy was inspired and went into the dungeon with complete confidence. The guy decides to use the bomber method, thanks to which they can quickly raise their rank. To reach rank A, they only need to make donations to the guild every day for 6 days. To get the mithril, they need to get into the secret room, which can be easily done using the bomber method. Second explains to Iko what needs to be done. Sylvia asks if Iko is sure, to which the little girl answers positively, and the guy suggests practicing. The baby starts jumping and the guy uses magic to increase her jump. She uses the shield and Sylvia, and second lift the baby even higher. The baby is surprised by the height at which she is located. The little girl is having a lot of fun, but the guy remembers that he didn't think about how she would land. The baby lands safely and joyfully asks to repeat the jump. Eventually, they obtain the mithril and return to the guild. The girl in the guild is very surprised. The guy asks if they'll raise his rank, to which he receives a positive answer. The girl raises everyone's rank and the guy winks and says that tomorrow he will bring more mithril. The boy's behavior angered Sylvia and Yukari. The guy offers to split the experience gained equally, and Yukari asks what second will level up. The guy says he will level up his enchantment. The days flew by and the team gained a fair amount of experience in the dungeon. The boy also asked Yukari to gather information. The guy received information that forced him to change his plans. The guy is thinking about the best course of action, but Yukari distracts him from his thoughts. She asks the guy for 1 day. The girl also suggests her plan to take advantage of the Merchants Guild. Yukari explains that the Merchant Guild will not refuse such an easy way to make money and will only take a small commission. The girl asks the guy not to worry about the Adventurers Guild, since if anything happens, the Merchants Guild will protect them. The guy understands the difference between guilds and agrees with Yukari's plan. The guy thanks the girl and considers her very reliable. The next day, the team easily achieved a rank and went into the dungeon again to gain even more experience. It turned out that the guy needed experience to master summoning magic. The guy plans to maximize his summoning magic to gain the possession skill. He plans to use a premium ticket for this. Second is thinking about when to use the ticket to summon the spirit. The guy understands that now is not the time for a new member to join the team, but he shouldn't delay the call either. Meanwhile, the Merchant Guild agrees to work with their team, but they ask them to prove their strength. The boy meets the current master of the Merchants Guild. Iko is shocked by how big the master is. The master thanks the guy for his cooperation, but the guild is only interested in the results. The little girl is afraid of the big guy while the master asks the boy to prove his strength. If it turns out to be a lie, the master will have no mercy. The girls were a little scared, but the guy was absolutely sure that he could handle it. He is interested in what exactly he must do in order to prove his strength. The master notes that the boy is exactly as described and says he was simply testing them. He also says he's already given Yukari a task. The little girl is upset because she was scared, and the guy demands that the master apologize to her, which the master does. But the master still asks the guy to prove his strength. The master asks what kind of equipment the guy uses and receives an answer. Yukari asks what level the guy is in the summoning, and he replies that he has already reached level 4, which greatly surprises the master. The master thinks they have found a solution. The master assures that with the 4th level of conscription, there is every chance that the guy will be considered competent. The guy decides to develop the discussion in this direction. The girls fight against each other, proving their strength. The crowd is surprised and is now confident that the guys will be able to clear the dungeon. Second comes onto the stage and uses the ticket to begin summoning magic. The weather starts to get worse and people don't understand what's happening. The guy amazes people by controlling the weather. The guy remembers useful information about the summoning from a past life. Suddenly a hand appears from the sky. The hand falls to the ground right in front of the guy. Suddenly a voice is heard. He introduces himself as a great spirit, the owner of the 4 elements. The spirit shows its appearance, which greatly surprises the guy. The spirit kneels and says he's been waiting for a meeting. The people think the guy has summoned a demon and start to panic. The guy himself is shocked that he summoned the most powerful spirit and is still returning it back. Naturally, the negotiators, frightened, disappeared. The guy is still surprised that he was able to summon the strongest spirit, but he is not too happy. Yukari apologizes for miscalculating. The girl thinks the guy doesn't see any failure as a real failure, but the guy thinks it was an epic failure. The girl does not agree with him, since for a man who has failed, he behaves very calmly. The guy still agrees with the girl and says that she understands him better than he does. Yukari thinks that if she knew the owner better, she could come up with a better plan, but the guy says that she shouldn't worry about it. He is confident that if the plan doesn't work this time, it will work next time. Yukari says she wants to know more about the guy. She wants to know everything about him. She comes closer and awkwardly starts asking for something. Suddenly, there is a knock at the door, interrupting their conversation. A man enters the room, sorry for the late visit. It turns out that this is the Count's family's butler. The guy is slightly surprised and asks the purpose of the visit, to which the butler says that the Count has a proposal regarding the mithril trade. The boy suspects the Count has an ulterior motive. The whole situation seems suspicious to the boy. The guy looks at Yukari and eventually hands the matter over to her. The girl talks to the butler, after which she tells the boy that they will have to meet with the Count. The boy doesn't mind if the girl comes up with a plan of action. The butler leaves, promising to come back for them. The boy wonders if it could be a trap, but Yukari assures him the likelihood is extremely low. The guy asks the girl if she can handle it, to which she says she will do everything in the best possible way. The guy says that he doesn't want to burden her, since in addition to blacksmithing, she also takes care of his personal affairs, but the girl doesn't mind at all. The guy says that he will summon the spirit again tomorrow, but Yukari is not sure that they will get along. The next day, the guy prepares to summon the spirit, and the girls hide behind a shield just in case. Second summons a spirit. This time he appears without pretense. As soon as the spirit appears, it starts yelling at the guy. The spirit demands an explanation for why it was sent away immediately after being summoned. The spirit also asks whether its power is needed at the moment, to which it receives a negative answer. The guy decided to ask the spirit a few questions to get to know him better. The spirit explains that for him there is no concept of gender or age, but he says his name and several options for what he can be called. The guy introduces the girls to the spirit, who immediately names who does what, which surprises the guy. The guy thinks that the spirit can read his knowledge and begins to test him by asking questions. The spirit asks not to underestimate him, but also says that he is no match for the guy. Suddenly, the spirit calls the guy by his past name. The guy mentally asks the spirit not to talk about him. It turns out the guy can communicate with spirits using telepathy. The guy believes that telepathy will help him become number one and begins to think about the abilities of the spirit. It turns out that upon receiving the spirit, the guy automatically received a new skill and mastered all forms of the lightning element. The guy is happy with the current situation and believes that he and the spirit will get along great. The girls, standing off to the side, don't understand what's going on at all. Yukari points out that they have telepathic powers. The little girl is afraid of the spirit, and the guy sends him back. The boy tells Sylvia about the Count, much to her surprise. She tells him about the rumors she's heard about the Count's family. Yukari goes into more detail about the Count's children. The boy is already looking forward to meeting the Count's youngest daughter. Sylvia wonders how old Yukari is. It turns out that Yukari is older than Sylvia and Iko. Now they want to call her big sister. The guy is left alone in the room and calls upon the spirit to talk to him. The spirit shares with the boy the story of how he destroyed the great spirit of the earth. The butler, as promised, came for the guy, which is why he returned the spirit back and went to meet with the Count. The Count apparently was very pleased with his meeting with Second. He asks the guy how the soup tastes and says he's glad all the team members are teenagers. He also invites the guy to the banquet. After dinner, the Count asks if he can help the guy with anything. Second asks why the Count attaches such importance to this deal. The Count explains that they make equipment and weapons for the state, and using mithril will increase their power. The guy thinks that everything is for the sake of the state, to which the Count says that it is for the sake of the country, the fighters, and the people. In the end, they both say goodbye and go home. The next day, on the way to the Count, the boy and Yukari discuss the deal. He writes down the approximate amount of ore they can get from the dungeon per week and how long it will take them, and hands the paper to the girl. The girl is surprised because the guy thinks that it will only take them 20 days to do everything. The guy thinks it's strange that no one has conquered the dungeon, to which the girl says that it would be strange if they entered the dungeon 5 times a day. Soon they arrived at the city. Finally, the team arrived at the Count's estate. They enter the assembly hall and take their seats. Second leaves everything to Yukari. In fact, the guy doesn't understand a damn thing, but the girl apparently coped with everything. Second thanks Yukari, but she says it's too early since the contract hasn't been signed yet. The guy enters the ballroom where he meets the Count. The guy is curious about how others are doing, and he looks towards Sylvia and Yukari. The boy saw little Iko surrounded by maids in the hallway. He felt uneasy. Suddenly, Sherry, the count's daughter, appears. The girl behaves arrogantly towards the guy, and then starts to get completely furious. She told the guy to follow her, but the guy stayed put. Sherry took second out onto the balcony and began to ask him if he was a summoner, to which the guy replied that she was mistaken. The girl tells the guy not to relax just because her father likes him, but the guy doesn't seem to care. She also boasts about her rank. The guy invites the girl to discuss problems with him if they exist, which angers the girl and gets her back. The guy doesn't understand why the girl invited him, to which she says that she wants to show their difference in status. The girl summons a spirit, believing that her spirit is better than the guy's. The girl asks the spirit to show who she is, to which the spirit behaves friendly and gets acquainted with the guy. Sherry is angry about her spirit's behavior. It's the boy's turn. He confidently begins his call when Sylvia suddenly interrupts him, saying that something is wrong with Iko. The guy immediately jumps up and runs to the little girl. The next morning, the final meeting took place, at which the contract was finally signed. The team is about to return home, when suddenly the guy gets the feeling that he has forgotten something. Suddenly, Sherry appears and says that she is joining their team. The chariot rolls along the road. The blue-haired guy has been talking to Sherry nonstop for 2 hours. A dark-haired man sat in the middle, flanked by 2 fair-haired women. He continued to talk to his companion, actively engaging in conversation. Whenever he tried to act silly or embarrassing, Sherry intervened and confronted him. From the outside, it looked like a comedy duo, with everything revolving around the funny guy and the straightforward man. 2 more girls are sitting opposite. One of them is a cat girl. Next to her is a woman with blonde hair. The curly-haired girl raises a finger, joining in the argument and interrupting the guy. Sherry smiles despite her recent complaints. A chariot, passengers visible inside. A dark-haired man looks at her and asks a question. He wants to know what prompted her to join their journey. She explains that she did it for the sake of a competition between them. She wants to find out who is the better spirit summoner. The girl remarks that she believes they've already reached their limit in this competition. The boy asks if she plans to test this in their first fight. The girl confidently exclaims that they must compete in the art of summoning spirits. The boy mentally notes that, strictly speaking, he is not a spirit summoner at all. He agrees out loud and specifies how they will test it. The girl freezes, deep in thought. The boy notices suspiciously that she's making everything up on the spot. She begins to justify herself, saying that she's not really improvising, but merely choosing a method from a variety of possible options. Meanwhile, their horse-drawn chariot continues along the road through the dense trees. Sherry happily suggests a competition based on earning points for contributing to the Adventurers Guild. The guy asks incredulously if she really just said, "Oh, I made that up." She indignantly declares that he's being rude and that she never said anything like that. He asks how a point-based competition is connected to summoning mastery. The girl confidently explains that they are spirit summoners and therefore will earn points using summoning mastery. The girl sighs, and the blue-haired man notes that this gesture seems to suggest that everything should be simple. He reflects that he can make a contribution even without using spirit summoning. The fighter asks how long the competition will last. Sherry enthusiastically replies that it's just 1 day starting at dawn the next day. The winner will be the one with the most points for contributing to the guild. She asks if he agrees to these terms. Second agrees. Night has already fallen outside. All the characters are seated at one table, but Sherry has settled in separately at another. Second speculates that Sherry has taken the room next to his and is apparently planning to join them for dinner, which, in his opinion, creates the most annoying situation in the world. One of the visitors notices Sherry. People at the neighboring tables begin to whisper, recognizing her as the famous spirit summoner. Her name elicits a thrill from those around her. Hearing this, she raises her head contentedly and smiles, enjoying the attention and clearly proud of her popularity. He says she's suddenly amazing with a slight grin, which irritates her a little. She responds with irritation and lightly taps him on the shoulder as if offended, but not too hard. His gaze softens and he seems to begin to perceive Sherry differently. There's a subtle sense of warmth and acceptance nearby. For the first time, they feel a sense of mutual familiarity. He briefly recalls the 3 other girls on his team. Sylvia seems too serious, Yukari seems aloof, Iko seems too sweet. In contrast, Sherry stands out. Her flamboyance and her intervention in everyday moments seem to add life to their squad. Second lies on his bed staring at the ceiling. The room is quiet. Suddenly, he remembers something important. He activates the summoning. A young man with light blonde hair and a smug smile appears right in front of him. He looks at Second with an expression of friendly superiority, like an old acquaintance returning after a long absence. The young man approaches Second, irritation evident on his face. His gaze betrays displeasure and his brows are furrowed in anger. Second, still sitting listlessly, makes excuses, explaining that he's tired from too many tasks. Leaning even closer, the young man looks directly into Second's face, demanding and insistent. The question sounds like a challenge. He clearly wants an explanation and has no intention of backing down. Second is already sitting upright and the young man stands before him. The conversation takes a businesslike tone, turning to the Numidia Second encountered. He briefly describes her as Terra and notes her pleasant impression. The young man, however, hints that things aren't so simple and that she's not someone you can immediately understand. Second, suddenly remembering an important detail, raises a serious question. The topic is Terra's father. He doubts this will cause problems when they meet. The young man answers calmly, almost defiantly, emphasizing that he didn't just kill him, he destroyed him. The young man suddenly changes his tone. He laughs and with a confident grin declares that everything is under control. He claims that Terra is even excited about the prospect of becoming a great spirit. Second is surprised and silently notes that Terra might be much colder than he thought. Second calms down and asks a final clarifying question. Would there be any problems when they meet? Hearing a confident, he seems to receive permission. With a glint of amusement in his eyes, the young man adds that it would be fun to scare Shari at the same time. Second suggests they visit those he says are in the next room right now. The young man suddenly freezes, tenses, and asks suspiciously. When Second asked about what had happened, the young man turned around and asked if he was talking about the room on the left. After receiving confirmation, he noted with cold seriousness that he sensed no presence in that room. Second is at a loss. His thoughts immediately begin to race. If they're not in the room, then where could they have gone in the middle of the night? Sitting in silence, Second suddenly feels something strange, as if a detail is slipping away. His mind returns to Shari's words about the upcoming competition, which is supposed to be based on points. The question arises, when is it supposed to start? The answer is tomorrow. Memory brings back a memory. The competition arose suddenly, right there on the spot, seemingly without preparation. A doubt arises. If it truly was spontaneous, then what was the point? Why not schedule it for the next day? The thoughts deepen, memories become linked. Why did Shari approach him then? Why did she follow them? What is her true goal? The questions multiply. Why does she really need this competition? The young man, without hesitation, voices his guess. It's envy. A simple, direct answer that immediately resonates. Second silently considers what was said. He can't deny it. Yes, perhaps it is envy that drives her. The thoughts deepen. If Shari envies him as a summoner, perhaps she joined them to cope with that feeling. But it all feels like an attempt to displace him, as if she wants to rob him of his own importance. He is imbued with the seriousness of the situation. If all this is true, then it turns out that in Northern Gold now his. He is stunned, not believing what is happening, and asks the young man again if he is joking. The answer is direct and confident, no doubt about it, that's exactly it. Second reacts with a burst of irritation. The situation is getting out of control. Anger gives way to anxiety. Shari is too careless. If she really got herself into this, she'll just be erased. The protagonist abruptly leaps out of bed. His face is distorted with fatigue and irritation. The pent-up tension is no longer contained, as if it were exploding in one powerful gust. The young man, without losing his cold, mocking demeanor, watches this impulse with a slight smirk. Despite the outward sarcasm, his gaze betrays recognition. Such a decisive desire to act is a noble deed, worthy of respect. Shari and Terrasan enter the cave. Shari, her eyes fixed on her goal, is determined to conquer the Proline dungeon before Second. For her, this is more than just a test, it's a chance to prove her worth. She believes she deserves recognition, that her efforts deserve to be appreciated. Her thoughts wander, imagining everyone looking at her as a winner. In her imagination, her father, mother, Second, and all of Second's admirers will watch her with respect and admiration. She will be surrounded by attention and recognition that will no longer make her feel lonely. Shari is certain that the envy she feels will motivate her, elevate her to a new level, make her stronger, helping her change her destiny. Shari, full of determination, addresses her request, her gaze focused and serious. She wants Tarasan to say the words for her. This moment is crucial, and she hopes for support, ready to trust. Tarasan interrupts her, answering confidently. She is ready to support, she understands the importance of the moment, and is ready to be the one who will help Shari in this decision. Shari concludes her request by asking Tarasan to take her place and tells Second that she is her comrade. She hopes that with this support, everything will be possible. Tarasan agrees without hesitation, confidently and calmly confirming that she will do so. The hero gallops on horseback, irritated. If Shari is used to fighting only ordinary golems, she has no idea what she's getting into. She needs to be stopped, and quickly. Otherwise, everything could turn into a disaster. He clearly understands that if she gets to the boss, everything will get out of control. The mithril golem guarding the Pralin dungeon has a reputation for brutality. No one has ever survived a single encounter. But this time, it's even worse. This specimen seems monstrously large, even by the standards of legendary creatures. There's a common misconception. Many believe they're simply facing another golem, invulnerable to physical attacks. This belief is common among most who encounter such creatures. Usually, the logic is simple. If it's difficult to physically pierce an enemy, then you should use enchantments. This seems like the obvious and most sensible strategy. However, in the case of the mithril golem, things are different. Neither physical attacks nor conventional magical spells work against him. Players who lack the necessary information tend to think too simply, believing that simply using a standard spell, like Koural's flame form, is enough. But the damage from such attacks doesn't go away at all, and this mistake often proves fatal. The mithril golem turns to face the one who dared to attract its attention. At this point, with the mage already exhausted and immobilized by the spell, resistance becomes impossible. The creature mercilessly crushes the enemy, leaving no room for a counterattack. Therefore, by starting a fight with a magical attack, the player is almost certainly signing their own death warrant. This tactic leads to a quick and inevitable death. But how then to deal with this monster? It's quite simple. You need to develop your physical skills to a level where even a mithril golem will begin to take significant damage. Without this, heading into the Pralin dungeon is pure madness. The hero anxiously considers whether Shari has sufficiently powerful physical attacks and comes to the disappointing conclusion, most likely not. She can still defeat ordinary golems, but she doesn't stand a chance against this monster. The hero and the young man dismount, heading swiftly deeper into the dungeon. Their steps are confident, determination evident in every movement. The young man walks slightly ahead, choosing his path without hesitation, as if he senses where he should go. Second, following him, silently notes that Angelmois seems to be able to detect the presence of Namidia, a rare, magic-sensitive creature with a unique connection to the energy of the dungeons. This ability could prove crucial in the search, which means Shari is still alive. First, he quickly deals with the golem, splitting its mighty body in half with one powerful blow of his sword, quickly and silently so as not to attract unnecessary attention. Later, he and his partner sneaked past another golem, passing behind it like shadows. He did everything he could to avoid unnecessary confrontations, preferring to circle around enemies rather than rush into battle. The quieter they moved, the better. He knew that the important thing now wasn't victory, but speed. So he raced forward, avoiding combat at all costs. Since childhood, Shari has always been alone. While other children played together, she stood apart. The reason was obvious: she offended people, and no one wanted to communicate with the Count's heiress. Because of her background and character, she didn't believe it could be changed. Even the thought that things could be different seemed impossible, but deep down, a faint glimmer of hope remained. Little Shari felt lonely. She grew up with this feeling, and it was this feeling of guilt that pushed her to study the art of spirit summoning. One day, having summoned a spirit, she found one who became her only true friend, a being who never turned away or left. Through him, she tried to rid herself of her loneliness. Shari thinks of herself with confidence. She is a skilled spirit summoner, the heir of an earl, a beautiful girl with a great figure and face, and an rank adventurer. She survived her entire life on her own, relying only on herself. That is, until today. And only now, next to a person who is able to accept her stern character, she feels a pleasant feeling for the first time, the joy of a simple conversation with someone who understands. While fighting and fleeing from the Counts, Shari is filled with an unexpected feeling. For the first time in her 16 years of life, she has a real partner. The desire to make friends, to be recognized by someone truly important, seems incredibly wonderful to her. Gritting her teeth, she decides not to give in. Determined, she wants to prove her worth, dissuade him from objecting, and gain his recognition. In the heat of battle, Sherry quickly spots a threat from the right flank and commands her spirit to act. Tara reacts instantly, following the order without hesitation. Massive rocks crash down towards one of the pursuing counts. The group continues to move quickly through the cave until Shari suddenly stops, noticing something unexpected ahead. In front of them there is a blockage of massive stones, blocking the path. The silence is broken by Tara's alarmed cry, instantly sensing danger. She sharply warns Shari to retreat. Shari stops in confusion, not immediately realizing what is happening. A colossal figure begins to rise from the rubble. The stones coalesce, forming a mithril golem which awakens right before their eyes. The atmosphere instantly shifts from silence to tense anticipation of battle. The golem, awakened from the stone rubble, watches them motionless, radiating terrifying power. Tara immediately realizes the scale of the threat. This is no ordinary creature, but a true dungeon boss they can't defeat in a head-on fight. However, despite her panic, Shari maintains a cold resolve. She makes a choice not to retreat. Too much is at stake. If she succeeds in defeating this creature, she will prove her strength not only to others but to herself as well. Sherry gives the command, and Tara reluctantly but without hesitation obeys, preparing one of the most advanced techniques, the fifth form of earth. The magical energy begins to thicken, the air vibrating with tension. Shari knows for sure that this is her most powerful strike, all she can muster right now. Her voice rings with determination as she gives the signal to attack. Tara lifts massive boulders into the air. Massive rocks rise into the air above the monster's head, hanging ominously in a tense silence. The next moment, they crash down right on target. The blow hits the monster's shoulders, back, and arms, shattering its stone armor and causing it to roar in pain. The earth trembles under the spell's power, and dust and debris fly through the air. Shari asks Tara with delight, not hiding her joy at the victory, and with hope in her voice exclaims, "We did it." The thick white fog raised by the spell still obscures the battlefield. Curly is already confident of her victory. In her mind, she's jubilant. They've defeated Boss Proline before second. But suddenly, a shadow begins to rise from the milky haze. A monster emerges from the fog, completely undamaged, confidently waving its arm. Sherry, horrified, realizes the attacks have had no effect on him and panics as she and Tara are now defenseless. At that moment, the monster raises its fist and charges at them, preparing for the finishing blow. The monster delivers a crushing blow with its fist. The stone flesh of its hand slams into Sherry with furious force, throwing her away like a rag doll. Sherry's body crashes into the stone wall with a loud thud, leaving cracks and gouges in it. Tara rushes toward her in panicked desperation. Her eyes are wide with fear, her face contorted with alarm. She rushes toward her fallen mistress, oblivious to everything around her. Shari, sitting against the wall, slowly regains consciousness. Her mind is confused, her thoughts are fragmented, her vision unfocused. Blood is streaming down her temple, trickling down her cheek. She can't remember how much time has passed or why they came here in the first place. In front of her is the blurred silhouette of her friend, whose trembling lips are saying something, but the sounds are lost in the hum in her head. The next second, a monster looms before them like a mountain. Tara, without leaving Sherry's side, embraces her, holding her close, shielding her with her body, preparing to take the blow. Sherry, lying in Tara's arms, barely registers what's happening. Her eyes hold the trembling resolve of her companion despite her fear and helplessness. Sherry's heart clenches. She can't be sure if Tara will hear her words, but she still whispers faintly, "Thank you." A strange, bitter feeling wells up inside her, not despair, but gratitude. For the first time in a long time, someone has stayed by her side, even someone like her. Meanwhile, the giant fist is once again aimed straight at them. Shari, her gaze devastated but calm, bids farewell. "Bye, Tara." At the very last moment, when the shadow of the giant's fist nearly engulfed everything around them, a silhouette crashes before them. The tip of a sword stops the attack with a powerful ring. It's second. He stands between them and the monster, confident on his feet despite the force of the blow. His blade sparks with tension and his gaze is calm and determined. Sherry stares at him, stunned, unable to believe her eyes. Just now, she was saying goodbye to life, and now before her stands someone she didn't expect to see at that moment. And next to her, Tara still sits, her eyes closed, pressed against Sherry, ready to take the blow with her to the very end. The hero bats the monster's fist away and the powerful impact breaks the monster's arm. The enormous limb flies back and the stones shatter with a crash. Without wasting a second leaps into the air. He instantly approaches the enemy from above and with precision thrusts his sword straight into the monster's chest. The blow pierces the defense, tearing apart the stone flesh. A powerful vibration runs through the monster's body, and it begins to lose its balance, staggering under the onslaught of attacks. Both girls watched in amazement. Unable to look away, Sherry recalled one of the most powerful techniques she'd known since childhood. It was the Master Swordsman's Fortress, a technique she'd only seen once before, performed by her older brother, a renowned master. Yet what had just happened exceeded her expectations. Second hadn't simply repeated the technique, he'd imbued it with truly devastating power. His attacks were so powerful that the massive golem, seemingly invulnerable, was crushed in an instant. There was no doubt he was on a whole other level. Sherry watches in shock as Second crushes the golem with ease. His technique is on a level she can't match. She feels insignificant in the face of such power, unable to believe he considers her equal. Tara continues to hold Shari in her arms, pressing comfortingly against her. The tension melts away. They both relax, pausing in a brief moment of silence. Shari struggles to contain her emotions, realizing how badly she's treated Tara and how much she means to her. The girl gradually loses consciousness in her friend's arms. She reflects on how she simply wanted to do something and wonders if she should have come here alone. Tara addresses her anxiously, repeating the word mistress. In her mind, she accuses herself of stupidity, repeating this word. The girl notes that at the moment she is acting like an incredibly big idiot. The young man reports that he's channeled all the experience he gained from battles into the spirit possession skill. He claims to have raised it to level 11, expanding its capabilities. The heroes continue deeper into the cave. The one accompanying the main character notices that the girl is in danger. The blue-haired man realizes that Shari is on the verge of death. The young man stops abruptly and warns his companion that he's about to use his possession ability. His companion happily agrees. Both characters stand facing each other. A process of unification begins between them. They completely merge into one being. Inwardly, one of them is surprised by what has happened. He merges with the spirit and flies forward, explaining that the spirit possession ability lasts for 120 seconds at level 11. He adds that it can be reused after 440 seconds, increasing all stats by 2.5 times. He gets to the place and notices the girls standing next to the attacking monster. The monster's fist moves forcefully towards the girls, preparing to strike. The young man manages to stand between the monster and the girls, blocking the blow with his knife. He throws the monster's hand back with force, causing it to shatter into many pieces. While attacking the stone monster, he claims that with sufficient physical strength and predictability of the enemy, such a boss is not difficult to defeat. He adds that one needs to gradually get used to such battles. Then he notes that local residents often die before they even have a chance to do so. The young man stands on the fallen body of the monster and exhales. The young man exhales and wipes his forehead, indicating that the spirit possession ability has ended. He confidently places his hands on his hips and says his name with a smile. He admits internally that the effect of the ability was powerful and impressive, and supposes he'll get used to it with time. Turning around, he notices Tarasan, who formally congratulates him on his victory. Second admonishes the spirit, claiming that if he hadn't noticed in time, both girls could have died. She lowers her head, expressing guilt. He remembers the need to give the victim something important to drink. Taking out a large potion, he carefully brings it to Shari's lips and gives it to her to drink. Shari remains unconscious and he looks at her, assuming she will be okay. The spirit points out that this girl is a kind person deep down. He replies that he's already realized she's not a bad person. He believes she's distinguished by her unusual character, impulsiveness, naivety, and loneliness. The spirit notes that the girl has had no friends except her since childhood. The young man replies that he had already guessed this. She assumes that Shari has begun to feel sympathy for him. Tara adds that she hasn't known how to deal with such feelings since birth. The young man is surprised and asks again if everything was really arranged for his attention. The spirit explains that the girl's parents were the first to notice and believes there could be many reasons. The young man interrupts her with a sharp noise, prompting a surprised question from her. He sharply raises his voice and demands that she watch her mistress more closely. She explains that as a spirit, she cannot contradict her mistress's will. The young man irritably thinks that her behavior angers him. Then Tara leans over to Shari and asks her not to scold her. The young man claims that he doesn't swear at the girl, but in his mind he calls her a thorn and compares her to a log in his ass. He remembers that he needs to call the owner and casts the summon spirit spell, raising his hand over the magic circle. The boy's companion appears from the circle, and Tara reacts with surprise at the sight of him. The summoned spirit asks with displeasure why Tara is still staying in place. He uses his power to create a crack under her feet, causing her to lose her balance and fall. The girl, overcome with fear, falls to her knees and bows her head almost to the ground. The young man tries to stop the spirit, exclaiming and questioning what's happening. The summoned spirit apologizes and asks if he made a mistake. The girl remains kneeling. Her gaze is expressionless, as if empty. Second asks the spirit if it can read his thoughts using the sense of unity. It replies that it understands the request and is ready to fulfill it. The spirit explains that over time, spirits become one with their masters. He adds that their lifespan depends on their level of compatibility and clarifies that the dwarven spirit was under the control of this girl. The spirit asks whether the reason was affection, lust, or an inability to disobey. He adds that this sounds like an excuse. He tells Tara that she can't allow her mistress to be brought to the brink of death, calling her an incompetent great spirit. She doesn't respond. Second asks whether unification leads to the spirit's subordination to the master. The companion replies that masters don't have unilateral control, but that unity is achieved through mutual understanding. He clarifies that the Numidia is too close to its master. Second notes that this sounds a bit pathetic. Then he reflects that when you meet a lonely child without friends, you want to be there and support them. He urges everyone to think about this first. The spirit asks if Second is angry at the girl. He replies that after hearing her story, his compassionate side has taken over. The companion, smiling, says he'll acquit her then. Second asks if he's sure of his decision. The spirit laughingly admits he was just blowing things out of proportion. He declares he has no interest in a relationship with the owner of some random spirit and that he was only picking on the girl for fun. Second notes to himself that this guy really has a bad character and wonders when this all started. He decides it's time for them to go back and picks up Shari, throwing her over his shoulder. The hero, carrying Shari on his shoulder, suddenly feels moisture on her legs and reflexively freezes. He quickly examines her and notices that the girl has lost control of herself from shock and exhaustion. There is a heavy pause. Everyone present stands silently, not knowing how to react to what has happened. The protagonist explains that he contacted Sylvia via group chat and woke her up to prepare everything necessary at the base. Sylvia is abruptly awakened by a notification. At this point, Shari was unconscious. Second watched her with internal irritation and weariness, clearly disappointed that she had to endure such a state. Morning gradually arrives, cutting through the night with the soft light of a new day. Curly opens her eyes abruptly and rises from the bed, expressing bewilderment. She looks around, noticing that she's indoors, lying on a bed. Her companion is standing next to her. Looking around, she recalls what happened, not understanding how she survived. At this moment, her spirit embraces her with tears in her eyes. Shari lowers her head and apologizes. Her spirit, standing before her, replies that she should have stopped her sooner. The woman lying on the bed objects, claiming that the blame lies solely with her, since she left without due care. The spirit remarks that she knew about her mistress's feelings for the swordsman. After these words, the girl blushes. She jumps up and exclaims indignantly, not understanding what her interlocutor means. She points at the spirit, blushing, and sharply denies her words, calling them a joke. The servant calmly remarks that her flushed face is a clear confirmation of her feelings. She protests that this is impossible, but the spirit asks a series of direct questions about her actions and motives. The girl stutters as she attempts to answer. Tara confidently calls her feelings sympathy, and the girl in response thinks, remembering her desires to be noticed and recognized. She also clarifies that she should have warned about this earlier to avoid danger and shame, and the hostess, not understanding, asks again the meaning of the last word. The spirit reports that after a profuse nosebleed, Second saved the owner by helping her. She adds that he gave her the potion while she was unconscious, after which the girl immediately came to her senses, and then he carried her on his back to this place. She, embarrassed, notes to herself that the potion was probably valuable, and thinks about a way to repay him. She wonders if nosebleeds are really something to be ashamed of. Upon examining her reflection, she notices that she was wearing different clothes, including a skirt. Tara admits that the owner wet herself that time, which greatly surprises her. The girl asks the spirit what exactly she just said. She calmly repeats that her mistress wet herself. She cries out in tears of despair. In the morning, passersby walk past the building. Someone is knocking persistently on the door of Second's room. Sleepy and irritated, he opens the door and asks the reason for the visit. Blushing with excitement, the girl stands hesitantly, clutching the piece of paper in her hands. She holds the object forward, stuttering and shouting out a short phrase. Unable to bear the tension, she quickly turns around and leaves, thanking him and saying goodbye. Tara bows her head slightly in respect. The two of them walk down the long corridor, disappearing around the bend. The guy is left standing in his room, watching them leave. A slight look of bewilderment can be seen on his face. He doesn't quite understand what just happened. He holds the neatly folded letter in his hands and skims it. It details 3 topics: an apology, gratitude, and a promise to meet again. He feels a little weary from the excessive formality, as it's all been said before. After reading, he yawns and goes to rest. Second sits resolutely, making it clear that it's time to get down to business. Iko jumps up joyfully, her face lighting up with delight. She's enthusiastically taking in what's happening. They're already together at the square table, sitting side by side, leaning toward the center. Iko beams with joy, loving the very sound of the name of what's happening. The atmosphere is friendly and slightly playful. The tavern owner handed the package to the boy, saying that Shari had already returned to Rignard. The atmosphere hinted that a discussion about the package's contents would soon begin. The footage shows a sealed package carefully placed on the table. It was stuffed with gold coins. Likely payment for the assistance, it contained almost 2 million in gold. Before beginning his explanation, the protagonist addresses Sylvia with complete seriousness. He intends to share with her an important plan, determined and organized. Sylvia immediately assumes a serious tone. Her gaze is full of anticipation and concentration. She's ready to listen and absorb every word, making it clear that she will take everything seriously. Despite her youthful appearance, Sylvia will train enthusiastically. Her goal is clear: to level up all her skills to the 9th level and master 2 key combat techniques that enhance her magical archery. If possible, she should also learn the advanced forms of rook and bishop. Sylvia, a little perplexed, recalls that these skills were previously dismissed as useless. A slight doubt arises. Why waste time and effort on them then? A clarification is in order right away. These skills are indeed difficult to apply, require a significant amount of resources and experience, and, if used improperly, truly become useless. However, at the beginning of your journey, this perception may be misguided. Over time, every professional is obligated to master them. They become essential for maximum development, and even more importantly, they are indispensable if one plans to achieve a new status. The key requirement is that all skills must be developed to the 9th level, including the advanced rook and bishop. Sylvia was slightly taken aback by the title. Her eyes widened with surprise and bewilderment. It sounded serious and completely unexpected. Realizing that they were talking about her, Sylvia stood up abruptly, her voice a mixture of excitement and confusion. The plan is fully revealed. The ultimate goal is to obtain the high title of Demon Piercer. This title was once the coveted trophy of the main character himself, but now he passes this opportunity on to her. After completing the previous tasks, the group's next goal is to develop Iko. First, she needs to obtain an advanced Shield Master Rook. This is a key step, as they will immediately be able to ascend to Tier I if Echo has any free time left. She should learn the remaining Shield Master skills and then focus on achieving the title. She accepted the command. Once the plan with Iko was clear, it was time to deal with Yukari. Her path involves continuing to develop her blacksmithing skills to the 9th level. After that, she will need to master a new skill, Bestowal, which allows her to imbue equipment with special effects. This skill also needs to be developed to the 9th level to become as effective as possible. Yukari enthusiastically accepts the task and takes full responsibility for its completion. After that, she inquires about Second's plans. He has also prepared a comprehensive plan for himself. First and foremost, he plans to obtain an advanced rook and a sword master bishop. Then, he plans to develop his spirit possession ability to the highest level. After that, learn transformation. Next, they plan to extract the fourth form from Maine and finally earn titles in 3 areas: Master Swordsman, Sorcerer, and Spirit Summoner. The scale of his plans surprises and slightly frightens his companions, especially Sylvia, who is amazed by the scope of the tasks, and Yukari, who notices how clear and specific his vision of the goals is. Second completes his internal preparations and focuses on learning a skill called transformation. This skill, similar in mechanics to spirit possession, allows for a temporary, significant boost to stats. Once mastered, he completes all the necessary steps to achieve his goal. Over the next 2 months, the group plans to frequently visit Pralin, a place where they can not only gain experience but also obtain valuable mithril. The main activity will take place between this town and the tavern, and each member will be expected to contribute to the common cause. Everyone enthusiastically agrees, ready to work towards the intended plan. Later, in a quiet environment when the group is spending time together, it becomes clear that someone is watching them. Shari looks at them through the window, all red with embarrassment and excitement. She wonders if Second had time to read the letter she left him. At this moment, Tara notices a man approaching and warns Shari. Suddenly, a young man approaches them, addressing Shari by name, which surprises her. The girl reacts sharply to his sudden appearance, demanding to know who he is. A young man approaches the group and introduces himself as Serum, a 19-year-old C-rank adventurer just beginning to practice spirit summoning. He's clearly excited and amazed by his meeting with Shari, expressing excessive admiration. Shari is clearly irritated by his persistence and reacts coldly to his attempt at acquaintance, unhappy that she is being distracted. Despite her reaction, Serum continues to admire the Earth Spirit, calling it an incredible creature with a powerful aura. Tara is slightly embarrassed by the flood of compliments, but soon a new spirit, previously concealing its aura, appears. It apologizes to its master for this. The atmosphere becomes slightly awkward, but Tara quickly switches gears and interacts with interest with the new wind spirit named Nymph, who speaks of Tara with respect. She is also happy to meet the spirit. The conversation turns to a more serious topic. Tara mentions that last night she encountered the great spirit lord Angelmois. This causes shock and excitement among those around. Everyone understands that this is an extremely powerful being, standing at the pinnacle of the spirit world. Serum, shocked by this revelation, begins to ask where such a powerful spirit can be found. Tara begins to explain that the great spirit lord serves a man named Second Sama. However, Shari interrupts, reacting loudly and emotionally to what she heard. She is shocked that Tara didn't tell her earlier that Second had such a powerful spirit. Shari begins to remember how she recently boasted of her power and summoned a spirit, confident in her importance. Now, having learned about the spirit of Angelmois, she feels embarrassed and awkward. Tara calmly says she simply forgot, but Shari, frustrated, accuses her of being unable to forget such important information. Tara merely apologizes playfully, like an obedient spirit. Shari reflects, a mere spirit summoner served by the great lord himself. Realizing the difference in level, she feels inferior and depressed. Suddenly, Shari notices that the long-haired guy Serum has gone somewhere. Tara points out where exactly he's headed, straight for Second. Shari screams in panic and calls for Tara to run away with her. They both quickly flee the scene. Meanwhile, Second stands with an impassive expression on his face. The guy comes up to him and calls him by name, asking if he really is that same Second Sama. Having received confirmation, he enthusiastically introduces himself as a spirit summoner, adding that he learned about it from Shari. Second is surprised and slightly irritated, internally wondering what's going on and what Shari has to do with it. A wind spirit named Nymph stands before Second. He politely explains that he is here to greet Second Sama, as he is the master of the great lord of spirits. The protagonist mentally notices that the spirit speaks strange Russian and estimates her strength to be approximately 17,000. Then he asks the guy who came in what's wrong. Serum mumbles that he'd like to see the great spirit lord. Second is irritated. He doesn't like those types, those who try to win someone's trust to get something. At this moment, Second receives a message in the group chat from Yukari. He knows about the assassination attempt. Be vigilant. The protagonist is shocked. Does Serum know about the assassination attempt? When Serum repeats his request, Second begins to suspect he might be using a standard assassin tactic, gaining trust by disguising himself as an ordinary person. He begins to wonder, why does Serum need Angelmoi? What will he gain from it? Second decides to ask directly, why is it so important for you to see him? He's not afraid to ask direct questions, whether he's facing a killer or not. The important thing is to understand the essence. Serum replies that the great spirit of the earth said, Angelmoi is a fearsome and majestic figure standing at the pinnacle of the spirit world. Meeting him is the dream of every spirit summoner. Second considers this an acceptable reason. The protagonist comes up with an idea on how to test the stranger's intentions. He agrees to show him the Lord of Spirits. Serum, hearing this, rejoices and thanks him. Angelmoi appears, a powerful spirit that causes great pressure just by its presence. The spirit is mentally ordered by its master to make them prostrate themselves. At that moment, Serum and Nymph were overcome by an inexplicable fear, and they both fell to their knees without resistance, pressing their faces to the ground. Both are on their knees, and in front of them stands Angelmoi with Second. The situation echoes what happened previously with another character, Terra. The hero notices that this power causes even the strong to lose their will to resist. He begins to understand how dangerous this ability can be if used in combat. The spirit explains that this is a special ability available only to the great Lord of Spirits. It only works on the weak or the insecure and therefore has limitations. However, even in this form, it makes a powerful impression. The nymph, finding herself before Angelmoi, experiences a sense of awe and excitement. The hero watches them and senses that they no longer look threatening, indeed pitiful. He decides that perhaps he should stop pressuring them. Angelmoi gives them the opportunity to raise their heads. At this moment, a sense of unity arises among everyone, as if they are connected to something greater. Serum, stunned by the god, cannot hide his delight. The spirit mentally informs Second that the suspicious person is strange. He decides to verify this information with Nymph. Yukari whispers to the protagonist that the person in question is waiting for an opportunity to escape. The power of Angelmoi descends upon the nymph. The nymph's master, surprised and thrilled, tried to help his spirit, but Angelmoi immediately forced him to kneel and face down. He mentally reports that he has identified the suspect. He turns out to be a spy from Illyasviel Marbel. He claims the spy is gathering information on adventurers in the kingdom of Castal. Second is certain this will ultimately lead to war between the states. He mentions that the Marbella Empire is known for its belligerence. Second speculates that the spy might be simply observing him or trying to recruit him. He suggests raising the spy's head for questioning. The spy asks, crying, if he had offended Second in any way. The hero coldly remarks that even if the spy is a dog of the Empire, he is still a first-class agent. Second assesses the situation. He explains that the Marbel Empire is seizing power over its neighbors through open conflict, avoiding petty tactics. Initially, he indifferently declares that he cares nothing for the Marbel Empire, even if their sudden rise as a nation is somehow connected to their position as the #1 power in the world. Second decides not to simply let the spy go, but to make sure he remembers this lesson forever. He says something about how Serum did a good job, then calls him the Dog of Empires, showing confidence in his abilities. A spy from the Marbel Empire reflects on his mission in the kingdom of Castal. He notes that he infiltrated to investigate a potential enemy, the Marbel Empire. His attention was drawn to the spirit of Shari Lumberjack, and he was able to study the spirit so closely. The spy is counting on the great Earth spirit in the coming war, anticipating that it may prove problematic, but he's also counting on someone else whose existence he questions. They show the great Lord of Spirits, Angelmoi. Serum wasn't the only one who noticed that the ruler of the spirit world was in a country that was hostile to him, so he couldn't leave things as they were. Second says something about how Serum did a good job, then calls him the Dog of Empires. The spy panics, thinking that the great spirit lord has exposed his plans. He's perplexed by how this happened, as the spirit didn't tell its master that he belonged to the Marbella Empire. He begins to suspect the Dark Elf. The spy admits that he left no evidence, but the situation still turns against him. He sinks into despair. His thoughts are chaotic. He suspects Second is reading his thoughts. He curses his ignorance. He admits defeat. Serum expresses a desire to write a farewell letter to his family before his death, with the goal of reporting the true state of affairs to the Empire. He reminds himself that this is the last mission he must complete. Second coldly declares that he will not kill the spy since he got it all wrong. He invites the spy to join a raid in the Pralin dungeon, leaving him a choice. The spy, shocked, is surprised by the main character. The spy analyzes Second's behavior. He realizes that Second had been manipulating him from the very beginning, testing him. He reminds himself that he's an intelligence operative fighting for his life. He wonders how Second can continue to play and where he gets his stamina from. Terrible thought Serum and declined the offer. Second calmly let him go. The spirit of Serum leaves, disappearing, to which he asks to return. Second confidently ordered Seruma to tell his boss that the world's #1 liked the Marbella Empire. Seruma understood and promised to inform his emperor. He solemnly swears that he will never forget this terrible man and decides to leave the kingdom of Castal. Yukari asks Second if letting him go was a good idea. He confidently replies, of course. However, he was an imperial spy and she doubts the hero's instincts. The boy says he learned this thanks to Angelmois, to which Angelmois confirms, explaining that he can extract the memories of any spirit under his absolute control. Second is delighted. Second confidently asks if he left a lasting impression. The girls look at him in surprise. He's perplexed. The boy says he likes the Empire a little, to which his spirit happily agrees and declares that he likes it too. The girls watched silently as they discussed the Empire. Yukari decides to warn his master, saying they're far beyond his reach. Sylvia is surprised by how calmly he claims to like the Empire and how boldly he provokes the Emperor. He thinks he's just been scolded and understands because her words make sense. Iko asks him to go and get started. He decides to go to Prolene, quickly changing the subject. In about 2 months from today, they were going to gain a lot of experience in the dungeon while collecting mithril. That was the plan. But after a little over a month of raiding, they unexpectedly collected all the mithril needed to complete the deal with Count Barrel Lumberjack. They also accumulated a whole slew of experience. Now that they have some free time after the case, the hero decides to take the next step, seeing this as a good opportunity. He suggests that his partners take up the study. In other words, they should learn the advanced rook and bishop skills from the basic skills they now possess, regardless of whether they can use them or not. In Sylvia's case, this would be Advanced Archer's Rook and Advanced Archer's Bishop. In Iko's case, this would be Advanced Shield Master's Rook and Advanced Shield Master's Bishop. The hero decides to learn what Sylvia and Iko will have. He understands that it will be difficult to unlock them one after the other, so the plan is to learn one while they have the opportunity and reach the 16th grade. Although the Advanced Swordmaster's Rook can be useful in some practical situations, he wants to improve it when he gets it. Sylvia is wondering how to obtain them. She still has 2 more to choose for the archer, so she's enthusiastic. Second explains to her about the archer's advanced rook. Basically, they just need to defeat the dragon. She's horrified, surprised. More important is how they do it. In the case of the advanced archer's rook, the final attack must be made by the archer's rook. But before that, they need to use 7 different skill types from the pawn to the archer's castle. They plan to attack it with each at least once. Yukari asks her master if such effective actions are possible in a battle with a dragon. The hero confidently replies yes, it's a piece of cake for him because he knows how to do it. Besides, it's not enough to acquire an advanced archer's rook. Sylvia is shocked by how insufficient it is. If they repeat this sequence, as he said during the battle with 5 different dragons, they will be able to learn it. Sylvia is too stunned. Iko thinks it's difficult. Yukari agrees with her. It does sound complicated. There's more than one type of dragon in Mobian. There are at least 12 species in total. He believes they can satisfy the requirements by finding 5 of them, starting with the weakest, so he doesn't believe anything more difficult could exist. Given all this, acquiring the advanced rook skill will be much easier. In the case of the advanced archer's rook, it simply needs to defeat any 10 dragons using only the archer's castle. She is scared and clearly sure that it will not be so easy. It seems she is losing consciousness. The same conditions apply to the sword master. This means they will hunt the dragon together, and as long as he's helping her, everything will be fine, and he asks her not to worry. Sylvia suspects he's trying to throw her into the dragon's lair. He doesn't understand who she takes him for. Iko asks what about her. Iko has a special case. All it takes for an advanced shield master bishop to defeat a dragon is for the party leader to interact with at least one of the shield master's skills from pawn to castle. They plan to do this with 5 different dragon types. For an advanced shield master rook, it needs to withstand 100 consecutive hits using the shield master lock. It might be difficult, but he'll explain how to do it properly. Iko understood. Once they finish hunting the dragons, he's counting on Yukari's help with the matter with the count. Yukari asks him to rely on her. They begin operations, and so their adventure in Pralin comes to an end. They headed north from the bad gold towards the ravine. Iko wondered where the dragon was. Second answers that there are plenty of them in the dungeon in Medio. The second-tier Medio dungeon is actually a canyon. It looks like a ravine, and there are 7 types of dragons here, including a boss. In other words, it's a dragon's lair. Sylvia asks if he said Medio, and he confirms. He hasn't been conquered yet. After all, this is the hardest dungeon in the second tier. If Pralin hasn't been conquered, then Medio must be too. Sylvia doesn't think it's right to go to such a dangerous place to defeat dragons. There aren't many monsters in Medio. The 3 of them can fight any of them. All these monsters are dragons, quality over quantity, and each one is extremely powerful. The hero asks the fair-haired one not to worry. The 3 of them stand and watch. The team reach their destination. The dragon was found right away. It's huge. Sylvia is scared, and the guy is going to show her how to win. The dragon is right in front of the hero. He summons his spirit and uses possession. Spiritual possession. Now, after the activations, he cannot waste a second. This time, he intends to acquire the Advanced Archer's Rook. He will begin fulfilling the conditions, attack them with 7 different skills from pawns to castles. He uses an archer's pawn on the dragon. The dragon is furious. Then he uses the archer's spear. The monster is in great pain. After these 2, he immediately uses the Golden General's shot, which will knock him back. So he used the archer's elephant. When a monster starts to squeal, inhaling air, it means it's about to exhale. When it exhales, it will be fire. Once he runs out of steam, he will have a chance to throw all his strength into the attack. He uses all 3, Archer's Castle, Silver General's Shot, Knight's Shot. Now he's fulfilled the condition, attack with all 7 skills. All that's left is to finish him off with Archer's Bishop. He finishes off the Archer's Elephant. Elephant Flurry. The dragon was defeated. Well, that was a rough example of how to proceed. The girls are silent, surprised. Now he's defeated one to demonstrate how it works. Next, they'll do it together. Destroying the white dragons isn't difficult. He pushes them back with his Golden General's attack. When they screech and attack with their breath, he'll need to dodge. Those are the only 2 steps he needs to take. He decides to go ahead and begin, but Sylvia suddenly stops him. She is surprised that he is so experienced, that he pacified the dragon alone. Besides, Iko asks, interrupting, if he is scared. He thinks there's some misunderstanding here. It will be problematic if their nerves fail, so he must warn them. There's nothing to be afraid of, he said confidently. The guy explains from the start that even if the white dragon lands 3 critical hits with its strongest attacks, they'll die. He also mentioned that he's pushing back its advance with the Golden General and dodging as soon as it screeches. As long as she can do that, experience doesn't matter. Anyone can defeat them. Sylvia is still surprised. Since they want to become number 1 in the world, they must be able to defeat the white dragon with 1 blow. The group members must not fear their enemies, our hero tells the girls. Moreover, he apologized. He realized he had spoken without thinking. The girls were angry. He even scolded them for being surprised, so Iko told him to apologize again. Second did. After he fully shared his knowledge, they immediately began hunting dragons. It describes and tells what kind of dragons exist. Afterwards, he explains how strong each dragon is. If they were to engage in battle, the red dragon would be their best option. However, fighting the golden dragon, which is 8 times stronger than the white one, might take them a little longer. He's confident he'll be fine, but Sylvia and Iko are questionable. For obvious reasons, the rainbow dragon is out of the question. If he were asked to fight it, he could defeat it alone, though it would take a long time. However, if the 3 of them attacked, fighting it and covering the girls would be nearly impossible, the hero believes. Moreover, he would avoid fighting the rainbow dragon right now, as he does with many gold dragons. However, this time their goal isn't conquering the Medio dungeon, but acquiring an advanced bishop and rook. If they successfully fulfill the bishop and rook acquisition requirements, that is. In the Medio dungeon, they must complete all the conditions for the advanced rook on white dragons, and then they simply need to complete the conditions for the advanced bishop by defeating a white, blue, yellow, green, or red dragon. There's no need to deliberately engage powerful gold and rainbow dragons. In fact, their strongest enemy by default is the red dragon. Dragons with red scales are essentially twice as strong as white ones. Second suggests taking a walk in the park. Sylvia and Iko were very tired after such a busy day. After Sylvia managed to learn the advanced archer's rook today, Iko learned the advanced shield master's rook. He learned the advanced sword master's rook and the advanced archer's rook. The dragon body count easily surpassed 34. Tomorrow they will face 4, thus ending this. These 4 will be stronger than the white dragons, which alarms Sylvia, as he himself said that the red ones are twice as strong as the white ones. Second remembers he needs to warn her about something. He says it will be a wise advice. You can't harm the invulnerable, he said. To her, this sounds completely pointless, and she advises him to put himself in the shoes of the subordinates he's dragged along with him. Second, not understanding, teases the girl. She says he must first teach them how to avoid them, to which he gravely replies that he can't neglect protection tomorrow. The guy says this, and Iko too, that if something doesn't go according to plan, they should dodge it. There are 3 ways to dodge them. They should remember them well. 1. If you hear a dragon screech, run in a large circle around the dragon. 2. If the dragon is flying, run perpendicular to its movement. 3. The moment the dragon turns away and looks the other way, lean. They'll dodge breath if they're smart, dodge blows if they're fast, and dodge tails if they duck. He only figured this out after being defeated by dragons many times, the perfect approach. However, in this world, they have no room for error. Moreover, in fact, very few people know about this approach. Sylvia told the guy with a smile that she remembered. He's sure she's remembered everything. Even in the past, she's been plagued by doubts about how he knows all this. Naturally, he can't reveal the reason, and they both know it, so she nods silently, offering no clue. As long as they remember what he just told them, they'll be safe. Besides, they need to defeat them with the same techniques they used against the white dragons. Sylvia wonders if they're planning to conquer the Medio dungeon. The young man replies no. If they prepare properly, there might even be a chance to conquer him, but even so, they won't gain anything from it. The girls are thrilled to realize that he can be conquered. Sylvia said second Dono was strange. If he flaunted a strong desire to achieve the ambiguous honor of becoming number 1 in the world, then he had no need for the kind of honors bestowed upon conquering dungeons. She asked him if he knew what it meant to be greedy. It seems she wants to call him weird. He completely accepts the fact that she's absolutely right. He just doesn't want to waste time. After all, he wants to become number 1 in the world, so for him, this is all just part of the process. She would say he has extraordinary self-control and his unwavering confidence is strange. The young man asks if that's a good thing, to which the girl agrees. Meanwhile, Iko fell asleep on the table. Night fell. The big dragon and second begin to fight, along with the girls. Sylvia had already obtained the advanced archer's rook and Iko the advanced shieldmaster's rook. The 3 of them constantly attacked every dragon, and even when they encountered green and red dragons, the dragons were no match for them. In short, it was all thanks to Second's amazingly accurate advice. Besides, he said he'd also learned the advanced archer's rook. So why is he still fighting, Sylvia wonders. It's because he's trying to learn the advanced swordmaster rook, the girl speculated. Since I have a chance, I'll fight this one alone. Having said this, he moved toward the red dragon as if it were a cakewalk. He attacks the dragon. If it could all be summed up in one word for her, she would say it was wonderful. Second's perfect moves, executed according to all the rules, mercilessly defeated the red dragon. Now he has mastered the technique. He suggests they return. His face was filled with familiar emotions. He looked like he had when they were sitting in that unusual corner room at the inn and when he'd found the excellent food at the tavern. She'd often noticed his eccentricities, but never had she seen such emotion as today. Besides, for some reason, she admired him greatly. She wanted to be like him. Iko says it's time to go back. Sylvia calls the boy's name. It turns out there's someone fighting there and he offers to check it out. People are rare in dungeons, especially here in Medio, especially considering it hasn't been conquered yet. Only the foolish or the fearless can come here. It seems to be a sword master who also plays alone, the hero notices. A stranger was fighting a yellow dragon. Nearby stood another girl dressed as a servant. He's definitely strong. It makes sense considering he defeated that yellow dragon single-handed. He won without even breaking a sweat. Second guesses his strength must be greater than mine. It looks like he's about to enter another war, this time with the green dragon. In truth, he fought each of the dragons with confidence and courage. Sylvia admits he's strong, but she finds his fighting style unsightly. She sees he's holding up well. Compared to Second, who fought a minute earlier, the difference between them is practically like heaven and earth to her. Second says this guy will have trouble with the golden dragon, and if he meets the rainbow one, he'll say goodbye to his life. The girl thinks that if that's the case, things could turn out badly and considers warning him. Afterwards, the strangers left. She decided he seemed to know his place, so she didn't say anything. The team decided to return to meet Yukari sooner and see the mansion tomorrow. Mansion, Yukari paid a visit to Count Laberjack's family. Payment for the mithril ingots in exchange for the enormous sum of 30 million. Until the owner returns, she will remain in the Count's mansion. She decided to obediently wait for him here for the safekeeping of the 30 million. It was the best solution. However, she is not idle. They plan to purchase this beautiful estate. She organized negotiations for its purchase. She brought in an engineer, a contractor, a builder, and a carpenter. They were all big shots in the royal capital, but even they might not be able to meet the owner's demands, she believed. So, after the owner decided to buy this estate and inspected it, he said, "It's only half what I expected." The largest and most expensive estate on the outskirts of the royal capital costs 2 million, yet he didn't even bat an eyelid. A joyful and inspired young man decides to buy 9 estates in a 3x3 grid, along with all the land between them, and turn them into massive estates. Although the girl loves her master, for a moment she thinks he's truly stupid. There's only one thing she can do: take the first step toward making her dream a reality. She outlined her demands for the workers. Estates, land, and reconstruction would cost 200 billion. She expected no less from him. He wanted his home to be worthy of the world's #1. Now all the preparations for her had to be completed. All that remained was to develop a plan for the servants. Suddenly, a maid entered the room, announcing that President Philippe from Morris's slave company had arrived. The girl was surprised. There's a chance one of their agents has decided to follow them the extra mile or keep their mouth shut. The elf understands this question could lead to a confrontation, but she didn't think it would happen today. She's no longer a slave. Moreover, her contract protected by Morris's company is no longer valid. She can't ignore this. She needs to consult with her master in the group chat and find out if this is okay. Second replied that yes, it is. She has a bad feeling about this. However, if he says so, then she's sure everything will be fine. Filippodono comes inside at the invitation. He enters, surprised by the words, "What a surprise." He says it's very surprising. He came to show respect, but he's become boring too, asking if it's true. The girl remains silent. He continues, "In this society, there are scoundrels who illegally break slave contracts to sell them on the black market. Such people behave inexcusably." She wondered if he'd realized something. Although it didn't seem like this man had come to threaten second, she no longer understood what was happening. The president said that was why her master was so great, because he managed the slaves so well. The girl remained silent, perplexed. She had finally fled. The contract should be invalid, and this man must know all this. He continued, "This is for your master." He was entrusted with something by her previous master. A hand extended a letter. She was surprised. It was from her previous owner, Duchess Lucia Azen, the woman who had taken her in and raised her in the ways of an assassin. She couldn't understand why she had suddenly sent a letter to second. The guest said the late Duchess had instructed him that if she and her master had a good relationship, he was to give this to him. She asked him, surprised, what? Confused, she asked what he means by claiming he was simply entrusted with delivering a letter. She sharply accuses him of knowing the situation, to which he defends himself, calling it a misunderstanding. He flatteringly remarks on the supposedly excellent relationship between master and servant, but she abruptly exposes this lie, admitting that she was in fact a slave. Her final remark expresses bewilderment, why she feigned ignorance until the very end. Yukari lists the key events of her life: her inexplicable release from prison by the president, her infiltration of Morris's slave company, and Lucia-sama's preservation of his life. All these facts, she believes, point to some hidden pattern or purpose. She wonders if she wanted to send this letter to the owner. Yukari shows her team the estate in the east. Sylvia is very surprised. Iko, having run through the corridors and seen everything she could about the estate, happily asked if they would live there. Yukari replied that she truly couldn't imagine her in a sane state. Second from the inside was also surprised by this, even thinking it was too much. Discussion of the upkeep of the unused building between Yukari and Second. It is proposed to use it as a summer home and move between estates depending on the season. Despite its lack of use, funds are needed for its maintenance. The hero optimistically plans to earn the necessary money and explore other estates. The southeastern estate, temporary. Sylvia asks what they'll choose between this and the previous building. The hero replies that this is his house too. He explains that this one and the one they'll be going to are all 9 of his houses. He continued to explain that he planned to have servants living in this house. Yukari asked him to entrust the training of the servants to her. He had a feeling it would be hard work and asked if she was sure. She replied that she would very much like him to entrust it to her. The team is summing up the purchase of 9 estates. Thanks to the agreements, the transactions went smoothly, with the total price coming in at 21.6 million, which is considered inexpensive. Sylvia happily announces that they can move into the Eastern estate this very night. The protagonist's monologue, he admits that he was a social loser and until now hadn't cared about real life while playing Mobian. After acquiring an estate that could become his winter home, his mood improved. Now this world has become reality for him. They're going to celebrate eating shashlik. A second-hand shop from yesterday, he pensively contemplates his search for coffee. The morning begins with a formal greeting. "Good morning, master," from Yukari, dressed in maid attire. The young man thought the maid's appearance suited her very well. She looked extremely professional, and he honestly wondered why she was wearing a maid's uniform. Sylvia was surprised that she had actually worn it. An emotional scene, Iko finds a garden and discovers fruit. Iko excitedly shouts about it to Second, describing the fruit as large and delicious. He, not understanding what she's talking about, goes out into the garden with her. They are coconuts. The realization dawns that they are indeed coconuts. He then clarifies that only the insides are edible, despite the tough shell. Yukari announces that breakfast is ready. A curt "got it," indicating acceptance of the information without further questioning. Second and Yukari discuss the letter's contents. He suggests that the late Duchess Lucia isn't left certain instructions. Yukari provides additional details about the situation. The theory about the president's possible brainwashing arises. However, the elf questions why Second believes Philip was okay back then. Whatever one might say, it's odd that the boss of a large company would personally travel all this way to deliver a single letter to a dark elf slave. It could be true if the Duchess had brainwashed him. If so, she'd be curious about what was in the letter. The Duchess went to such lengths to give it to him. He opens the letter and reads. What it says is worse than he expected. Yukari asks what it says. He says it's a very big problem, difficult to explain. He continued telling her not to worry and to rely on him. Yukari agreed. The letter contained 4 questions. 1. A list of people who can be trusted. 2. A list of people who cannot be trusted. 3. The internal intrigues of the Castal Kingdom. 4. Ways to acquire brainwashing magic. Hordes of spies from the Empire have infested the kingdom and are manipulating public opinion. Those in the kingdom who are aware of this truth are now in a precarious situation. He believes the Empire's dog, who was recently lounging in the village of Tainted Gold, was one of them. The Empire is on the verge of taking over the kingdom. If the first Prince Klaus, who rose to the head of the reformists under the Prime Minister's leadership, becomes king, the kingdom will become part of the Empire. The reform they extol, a new era where we will keep pace with the Empire, sounds extremely tempting, but in reality it will end with you becoming vassals of the Empire. Unilaterally bound by the treaty and then simply exploited, the regions surrounding the Empire will also be devoured, even the countless tiny countries that have already been squeezed dry. On the other hand, the people of the kingdom, who know the truth, nominated second Prince Maine as their leader to champion conservatism. However, he is undoubtedly ahead. At the same time, by advocating a policy against military expansion, they are only disarming themselves. The kingdom's inhabitants loudly express their protest against war. At this rate, they won't even realize they are doomed to an invasion without a chance to fight back. This brings us to point 4, which accelerates the current situation in the kingdom. Duchess Iking's family knew all of this and continued to hide it for centuries. The reason she described the methods for mastering brainwashing magic here is obvious enough for him to understand. Please change the fate of the kingdom of Castal for me. He wonders why he and only he had to think about it when the answer immediately occurs to him. She passed on her brainwashing magic to a single unusually strong person, one who could see through Yukari's brainwashing and dispel it. It makes sense. If he loses, this letter will never have reached him and Yukari will return to Philip to find a new master and repeat the process. Frankly, he doesn't care at all about the future of the kingdom of Castal. However, I promised Yukari and he's worried about Maine. He's also worried that the championship won't take place if the kingdom of Castal falls. If he deals with this quickly, he wonders if he should overthrow the Prime Minister of Balmoria and the First Queen of White. But if he does, he has a feeling spies will incite and manipulate people to create a bad impression of him as a villain. If that happens, he'll likely be assassinated. He must stick to the best-case scenario where Maine comes to power and completely eliminates the source of corruption. He'd pondered many things but hadn't found a suitable answer. For now, he decided to just get it over with, and given what he'd prepared based on his experience, he thought he could participate. For now, he'd put the cleaning magic on hold. What could he say? Everything that was happening could be considered a major problem. So first and foremost, he wanted to complete his own plans. He plans to become the undisputed #1 in the world. He tells Yukari he wants to take Sylvia and Iko to study transformation skills. He asked her for a favor, take care of the servants. The boy apologized for handling matters separately. She replied that he shouldn't worry. Although she said she wanted to train servants, he barely caught it, but Yukari seemed concerned about servants. Perhaps this maid uniform also expressed her feelings. The boy complimented the girl, saying that the outfit suited her very well. The elf thanked him and, embarrassed, went to do her business. Slime Forest, the hero, Sylvia and Iko ask if they can learn it, to which the girl replies yes. It turns out that such a skill hasn't yet been discovered in this world, although the conditions for it are somewhat unique. He says there are 4 conditions, and they're extremely simple, so he'll explain them one by one. 1. They must deal 1,111 to 9,999 damage to one type of monster, with all 4 numbers matching one of them. 2. They must deal 1,111 to 9,999 damage to the dungeon boss, with all 4 numbers matching one of them. 3. You must complete steps 1 and 2 within 1 week. 4. Stomp and shout transformation at the same time and you're done. Sylvia wonders if the last point is necessary. He replies that for her, yes. Iko shouts transformation. Sylvia asks if the weapon the guy recently brought was designed to deal damage with the required numbers. To which the guy replies, yes, right now with their basic skills, a beginner's damage output is, say, 1,111. It would be impossible unless they encounter a tough enemy, at least tier 1. Before heading to the slime forest, they picked up 3 spears from an arms dealer in the royal capital. They also went back to the capital's main library to read a book and learn Spear Master's Pawn. They made all the preparations to deal damage. The reason they came to the forest is because slimes have low damage but high defense. All types of slimes congregate here, but other than that, the forest is the only one inhabited. The young man says to watch the damage they inflict. They're armed with spears. They have the enthusiastic Iko and the still resisting Sylvia. The hero thinks that once she learns transformation, she'll get used to it. If she decides to come up with special movements and names and shout them out every night, it might be scary, but they don't care. So they began their hunt for numbers. They spent 3 days acquiring transformation. Sylvia casts the spell. She transforms with a mask on her face and equipment. Moreover, she is completely focused on self-improvement. Transformation can be activated using any of the 4 great elements of your choice. In Sylvia's case, she chose fire transformation, causing her gear to turn fiery red. Now, while selecting these elements, something unexpected happened. In the hero's case, he was able to select light transformation. Performing a transformation without one of the 4 great elements is obviously unheard of. Second reincarnates with both his mask and equipment. Both the cloak and mask are a new design for him. He wonders if this could have been a secret element that existed from the very beginning, or if it's some newly developed feature. If the former, then that's good, but if it's the latter, then perhaps this world is being renewed. From now on, additional elements may be added to the game that he's unaware of. This is something he can feel uneasy about, but also look forward to, the hero thinks. Sylvia is practicing her shooting. Now she's finally gotten to the point of practicing special moves. 2 weeks have passed since then, and they've been busy gaining experience nonstop. The young man finished his preparations. He had just raised his transformation skill to 9th grade. He had acquired the minimum skills necessary for his transformations. Taming is a summoning skill in which they train monsters, and starting at 11th grade, they can tame wolf monsters. They can activate it whenever a monster's HP drops to 80% or more, and the success rate is said to be on average 20%, but this rate varies greatly depending on the type and strength of the monster you're targeting. They were created to tame a specific Majin. His name is Dark Wolf. Mutated version of the Black Fire Wolf boss in the first-tier dungeon Isekai, which evolved after centuries of isolation in eternal darkness. An extremely rare wolf Majin, a hostile character created as described. The hero admits that the ability to tame this Majin was one of the reasons he was able to remain #1 in this world. In the past, only one person managed to tame a dark wolf, and that was him, second. That's because it's so incredibly difficult that it borders on the impossible. In this game, the adage bosses can't be tamed was considered the ultimate fundamental knowledge, and besides, the dark wolf is insanely strong. It was as strong as the entire team. Therefore, no one ever considered taming it. However, the dark wolf can be tamed. It is a living creature that has further evolved from a mutated version of the boss. Considering it was just a puppy, he continued to reduce the wolf's HP to 20% and intended to tame it. The result was disastrous for the hero. After failing for about 1,000 attempts, his mind was 99.9% filled with thoughts of this is impossible. However, for some reason, he still refused to give up. No matter how many times he looked, wolves disappear after defeat like all other normal monsters. Therefore, the wolf is not a boss. He continued his endless hunt for dark wolves, 3,000 times every day from morning until evening. Finally, the moment arrived. When he passed the 4,600 try mark, he suddenly managed to tame one. There was one fact revealed only later. The chances of taming a dark wolf were approximately 0.0001%, and no skills or abilities affected this chance. The dark wolf can be tamed. When news of this spread, every player, even worse than him, tried to tame the beast. None of them succeeded. Tirades appeared on the forums about how impossible it was. Now he would try to test this impossibility. That was why he needed all this preparation. His mind was already set for it. It could be called the absolute method for victory. However, this world is different from Mobian. If he dies, it's all over. He hasn't felt fear in a long time. He's tried to minimize the risks, and in case of a worst-case scenario, he has insurance. However, he cannot get rid of the thought that he might die, but even so, he is not going to run away. Currently, the Kingdom of Castle and the Empire of Marbell are locked in a cold war. If he continues to relax, it may be too late. Before these sparks rain down on him, he will do everything he can to tame the Dark Wolf. This is the only chance he has to tame one of them. He commissioned Yukari to make him a mithril longbow, a mithril longsword, and all types of high-grade armor. The weapons will be upgraded by 5 of 6 stages, and the armor by 4 of 5. He also asked her to perform a 3rd stage promotion on the Ring of Pursuit, and he also accidentally realized he was starting to exploit Yukari too much. He can no longer imagine becoming #1 in the world without Yukari, so he plans to treat her to a nice, carefree vacation while he's busy fighting the Dark Wolf. However, this won't happen for the other 2 on the team. Lately, the hero believes they've become addicted to the elegant life in these mansions. If this continues, they'll eventually go through hell, and so he's already devised an intensive training regimen for them. Once he gets the equipment from Yukari, he'll hold a strategy meeting with everyone. He has a ton of things he needs to tell everyone, like what they should do if he dies. The girls on the team are surprised to hear this. After talking with them all night, he somehow got the 3 of them to understand. He made them agree to report to him every day via team chat. This would irritate him a little, but he had no other choice. He instructed Sylvia and Iko to conduct an intensive training session called Investigating the Lame Father Alone. Despite how it sounds, he didn't mean they should play alone. He meant they should play together, but let one of them do the hitting while the other covers her back. Of course, Iko could only use defensive arts and restoration magic. Even just one monster along the way would take her too long. However, the boy decided against it. If he had to choose, it would be difficult for her, Sylvia. Thanks to such intensive training, the girls undoubtedly understand the importance of frontline and rearguard guards, as well as the importance of their support in battle. It would be great if they could become stronger before Seconds return, the hero thought. As for Yukari, he sent her on leave. On the other hand, it was also worrisome that she would suddenly find herself with too little to do, so he asked her to take care of one long-running task. The girls say goodbye to Second. 4 more servants said goodbye to him. The young man recounts his journey. He has some minor errands to attend to in the Isekai dungeon, so he stopped for the night in the city of Peho. He plans to share his information with his encouraging father, who will fight by his side for a long time to come. Engelmois appeared, and the hero asked him if he could enter mana mode and requested that he do so. If this world is like Mobian, spirits should be able to condense their bodies. The spirit complied with its master's command. Now no one else can see the spirit's body. They can communicate telepathically, but the spirit remains formless. The spirit asks why he summoned him while riding a horse. He responds that they will be fighting a very difficult enemy, so he decided to share the information with him. The spirit is surprised by this. The hero continues by saying that he means incredibly difficult, that fighting him would be madness, so difficult that if anyone defeated him on the first try, they would begin to bow down before him. The spirit says that they are fighting an enemy so difficult that he is willing to describe it that way, joking that he would be fired for such a thing. The hero directly explains what kind of enemy he is talking about and why they are going there. The spirit is surprised. The boy confirms his words, explaining his plan. Engelmois thinks it's brave and admirable, but he understands the battle will be long. They're heading for the Isekai dungeon, the Goblin Mage's Horn. It will be his trump card. The spirit was pleased with this perfect plan. The Goblin Mage's Horn was acquired. Peho, he bought all the health potions. Now his inventory is so full that he wouldn't be able to use them all up even in a few years. However, even so, there's no need to worry now, as he'll use them all up incredibly quickly. The next day, he set out for the port city of Kula. He used his free time to share the basic information with Engelmois. The hero tells his spirit that he intends to access the memory of the basic information about the Dark Wolf, asking it to read it as if he were one. Basic information about the beast. Dark transformation, you transform from a human to a wolf and vice versa. Casting time 8 seconds. Dark teleportation, you instantly teleport to a location you know. However, the destination must be in the shadows. Dark summoning can only be used in human form. Instantly teleport anything not in your possession to your own. However, the teleportation destination must be in the shadows. Dark magic can only be used in human form. You release a cloud of darkness in a wide area in front of you. The cloud reduces the health of the creature inside it to 1. Casting time 3 seconds. Dark Roar can only be used in wolf form, a powerful ranged attack in front of you. Casting time 2 seconds. Empty Shadow absorbs all attacks while active. Casting time 0 seconds, remains active for 3 seconds. Cooldown 30 seconds. Physical attacks do not affect you while in wolf form. Magical attacks do not affect you while in human form. The spirit asks, surprised why attacks don't work at all. The hero confirms. The spirit asks another question, can he reduce a target's health to 1? Does such powerful magic exist? The boy replies that he can and uses it quite often. The spirit falls silent. The young man says he's more afraid of his one-shot attack, which covers a wide area. The other man replies that what's even worse is that after using this attack, he immediately starts spamming him with regular attacks, which would require him to heal immediately. Second replies that he shouldn't heal right away. He needs to make sure he can do so safely first. The spirit asks how that works, to which he replies that it's because dark magic is usually followed by dark summoning or a staffmanship attack. He should block attacks from the front and dodge attacks from behind. Engelmois says he's never heard of any staffmanship. The hero decides to remind him of this. Staffmanship mode, you spin the shadow staff and deliver a series of continuous strikes. The special feature of the shadow staff is that even if the shadow is attacked, damage will still be dealt. Ultimate mode, you teleport from shadow to shadow. You deliver a long-range attack using a spear of dark flame. When you swing the spear of dark flame, for all the modes described above, a hollow shadow may be randomly activated. The spirit asks if this really is a monster, isn't it? I told you so, the hero replies. A dark wolf whom even the great ruler of spirits recognized as a monster, truly terrifyingly powerful in the hero's opinion. The dark wolf's stats aren't particularly high, but a theory has developed among players that it's the strongest mob in Mobian, and the reason for this is its incredibly annoying attacks. Its staffmanship mode and dark magic are quite annoying, so he needs to tame it in this world. The young man says that even if he succeeds in taming it, it would be much faster to use potions on the dark wolf. The spirit asks what they'll use on him. Taming is a skill that can only be used once when the monster's HP drops below 20%, but in reality, removing 80% of its full health is a condition for taming, the hero explains to the spirit. He continues by saying that fully healing the dark wolf and reducing its health back to 80% would be much faster than simply waiting for it to recover. The guy says they can defeat him and wait for a new one to appear in his place, but there's no guarantee someone will appear, so healing him with potions would be more sensible. They're almost there, the port city of Kula. Isorois is an old, huge, dilapidated fortress. They are still there. The boss is located on the top floor, one of 2 locations in the very center of the fortress. However, his objective is in the second location, called the Great Underground Library. Along the way, he encounters 2 large monsters. The hero suggests hurrying. The enemy is preparing for his attack. Second uses transformation and transforms. He transformed. During the transformation, every enemy character within a certain radius is guaranteed to be stunned. Plus, it grants 8 seconds of invulnerability, an incredibly useful transformation effect. Apparently, Mobian's leadership understands the transformation pattern, the hero thought. During his 8-second invulnerability, the transformation only takes 6 seconds, meaning he can do whatever he wants during the remaining 2 seconds of invulnerability. He'll use those 2 seconds of invulnerability to further push back his enemies. By doing this, he'll be able to buy himself enough time to prepare his skill. The spell is effective against enemies of the Knight subtype. He used the Tower Lightning Arrow combo attack on one of the enemies. It's called Kobumoster. He used the same trick on the second one. The spirit is delighted. The guy says he dealt critical damage to both of them, so this time he managed to defeat them in one shot, but if it weren't for him, it would have taken a little longer. It wouldn't have been amazing. The entrance to the Great Underground Library. The hero says they'll set up camp in front of the entrance to a section of the road. He explains that this is a safe zone where only ghost monsters appear. Ghosts here can't jump, so they can't reach a certain height. The hero enters the library and commands the spirit to use possession as soon as the door opens. The door opens, he immediately becomes possessed by the spirit, and the first thing he sees is a wolf. Engelmois is surprised at the sight of this terrifying, pitch-black, powerful beast. The spirit, frightened, says they have no chance and that they must retreat. After all, he is a great spirit ruler. He assesses risks accurately. With his stats, he cannot defeat the dark wolf right now, the young man admits. But he doesn't retreat, saying it's a game. He lights a fire for light and approaches the wolf. The wolf charges, and the hero uses the cast arc light attack. The wolf is immune to physical attacks in its wolf form, so the boy attacks it with combination, magic archery, and magic swordsmanship. He focuses on the legs to force the wolf to expose its weak points. Furthermore, the beast's actions after charging are divided into 4 patterns. This time it quickly attacked with its front left leg, which means it seems to be performing a takedown. In this case, it's best to dodge. He avoids this by stepping to the side just before the strike. Whenever a monster fails a grapple or claw attack, the Dark Wolf will inevitably use Dark Teleportation, Dark Transformation, Dark Summoning. The wolf used teleportation. If you follow the pattern, the wolf transforms into human form. The wolf turned into a girl. Second is confident, thinking she's his girl. She hasn't changed in this world. She's supposed to use Dark Summoning according to the pattern. The hero prepares Advanced Elephant Sword Master. She enters Void Shadow mode. He thinks he should be able to do so just as the black flames from her transformation dissipate. He steps forward 3 steps, ready for a perfect attack. The hero mentions that you won't be able to move while the attack is being prepared, and this is the level 6 preparation time, making you vulnerable for 4 seconds. However, the effect of this skill is excellent if it lands. The wolf fell and was stunned by him. Now he plans to use critical hits. While she's stunned, he'll aim for her legs and fire 2 skill shots. However, if both shots are critical, he's guaranteed to knock her down. If both are not critical, the stun will wear off. He's going to knock her down, and a huge part of his safety depends on whether he can knock her down. He uses rook shooting. This time, he manages to land 2 critical hits. She uses Dark Transformation again and runs at him. She uses Dark Transformation to return to wolf form without doing anything and starts running at him again. He can intercept her with Kobomoster. She lets go of her head, meaning she'll start running at him with the intent of biting him. He uses all his energy to dodge her. After biting her, she uses a Dark Roar. She needs 2 seconds to prepare for it, making it easier to dodge. After the attack, she will either charge at you or use a Dark Transformation. This time, it's the transformation. He prepares his attack again. She lands on an empty shadow and stuns. He tries to inflict some damage with the rook's fire, but only manages 1 critical hit. Once the stun wears off, she uses Dark Transformation and Dark Summoning. She uses a Dark Summoning. This time, it's Shadow Staff. She's trying to use Staffmanship mode, which doesn't matter to the hero. His 2 shots have weakened her enough that he can now take her out with 1 shot to the leg. He also uses a combination of Silver General's shot and Knight's shot to deal some damage. After you knock her down with the Dark Summon, she'll charge at you immediately after transforming. The guy happily and admiringly prepared Kobamostra. Even though the eyes of the Great Spirit Ruler determine that this world will be absolutely a battle, he crushes the enemy wolf that he created on a whim. He did not receive a single blow from the enemy, and he continues to perform divine techniques again and again. The spirit thinks, wondering what his master is thinking. Second wasn't thinking about anything. He was simply delighted with life at the moment. He knows for sure that eventually the boy will get him back, then the throne, and that's no lie. His dear second undoubtedly risked his life to return as #1 in the world, even if the battle may seem impossible for everyone, Angelmois thinks. The spirit is also motivated by its master. It wants to be stronger than everyone else and is willing to give up everything to make that happen, no matter what it thinks. It admires such a noble and independent person immensely. The spirit understands second. Angelmois insists he's no longer alone and wonders why he shouldn't risk his life to walk this road with him. He bursts into laughter and the boy tells him to calm down. The wolf's health finally regenerates by 20% per hour. It's quite simple. When this dark wolf's health drops below 25%, tongues of black flame begin to erupt from her body and she goes into berserk mode, the hero thinks. He simply needs to calculate how much attack he needs to make to reach 20% and recoup all the damage taken. It's no longer difficult for him to tame them. If he uses taming when she attacks, everything will be fine. Even when he tried to tame his girl in a past life, the conditions were roughly the same. The taming failed. If that didn't work, he healed her by throwing potions at her. The spirit doubtfully asks if he's sure, and the hero replies that he already said this method is more effective. An hour passes and it takes 4 times longer than before. Second was defeated. He'd already tried 9 times to bring her to a critical state and tame her, and now he'd returned to the tent, completely exhausted. Until this dark wolf leaves the great underground library of Isekai. Angelmois says he's been tormenting this monster for 10 hours. His fatigue is natural. The young man plans to begin doing this daily. The spirit says that if battles like today continue, she'll have no reason to resist like this every day. The hero replies that he was very lucky today, all because she couldn't use Void Shadow during Dark Summoning. When she transforms into her human form through Dark Transformation, she initiates Dark Summoning. Alternatively, she can use dark sorcery. While she's transforming, you can prepare and deal damage with advanced swordsmanship, after which she'll stop and need to be defeated with 2 critical hits to her legs. If you do this, you won't have to worry about using dark summoning or sorcery during the fight. The spirit says that after damaging her with advanced fencing, if the wolf is in shadow mode, stunning her won't work and the risk of her using dark magic increases, which the boy confirms. However, it's not just about magic. During a dark summoning, she enters some mastery mode and summons a shadow. Well, that would still be good, says Second. What if she goes into her most powerful state, summoning a spear of dark fire? Engelmois asks what if that happens. He will have no choice, he will use his trump card. It was difficult, the girl thinks. She wonders why she was imprisoned there. She's read a ton of books, but still doesn't know how many centuries passed before she regained consciousness. Every time someone passes by and tries to speak, her body refuses to obey her. A monstrous thirst for blood seeps from the depths of her heart, and her body moves of its own accord. The more this happens, the more intense her bloodlust becomes. She asks when the next one will come, what power he will have, what kind of death he will suffer. She can't wait to see him. Here he is, the she-wolf rejoiced at the noisy arrival of Second. Destined for her, it feels as if he was her lover in a past life. She senses their connection, she thinks. Her body keeps moving on its own. It demands to be killed, so she must destroy him. She is surprised, thinking that she is so excited for the first time in several hundred years. He finally attacked her. It is impossible to get hit by a person. The she-wolf, confused, wonders what has happened. She feels her life is in danger. Her legs and arms refuse to obey, and she is surprised. Her pain is growing, and she let out so many screams for the first time that it made the girl laugh. She's glad to be alive. She's been anticipating this moment, living in captivity in the darkness for so many centuries. She was born of darkness for the sake of meeting him. It hurts her so much, but this feeling is incredible. She asks for more pain and torment. The girl thinks it was truly wonderful and admits she would have liked to die at his hands. Afterwards, the hero heals her. She is surprised and thinks that he really is her betrothed. She has finally found him. Her master is gone, but she knows that those shining eyes as he left said, "I will never let you go." The girl believed the master would return and care for her again. She considered it magical, praying for the time to come when she could be with him. This rush of blood, this excitement, this fight to the death, she longs to be beheaded by these beautiful, sacred hands. She wants to hear Second's name and asks him to give it to her, and then his hands are on her neck. 2 months had passed since Second had left for Isorois. The regular weekly meetings they held could be called debriefings. During them, the girls exchanged information from the week and determined their next course of action. A tense atmosphere hung in the air. At these regular meetings, they compiled the bare minimum of information they needed to convey to Second and sent it to him in the form of weekly reports via team chat. Sylvia believes this is unnecessary and Iko joins her. Yukari also agrees, but they really need labor. Sylvia suggests they take a male slave and Iko agrees. The elf doesn't like men. Sylvia doesn't either, but it's better this way than making more enemies, and Iko agrees. Yukari says they might be right, but there's still a month and a half left before the 5 estates, excluding the central and southern castles of Second, are completed. She'd like to increase the size of her troop of versatile maids and their skills. Sylvia wants to know why. Currently, the maid squad consists of 10 people. Although they are essentially slightly inferior to her, they can consider them 10 clones of her, Yukari explains. Iko is scared. It's rude, she says. Iko apologized. Sylvia was slightly surprised. They truly were incredible, and their reliability was even more impressive. Yukari said that if they hired more personnel under their command, Second Castle would be unshakable, but on the other hand, they don't have enough subordinates. You mean commanders alone won't be of any use? Sylvia asked, and the girl confirmed. Once they've staffed up, they can be trusted with everything from training to management. However, they can only train maids, so they should hire as many female slaves as possible. Sylvia understood and resigned, said let all the female slaves be maids and all the other slaves be male. Yukari agreed with this. She would handle the selection and assignment of people. Sylvia offered herself as her replacement. Yukari politely asked her not to be jealous. This was an important task her master had entrusted her with and said he wasn't going to give it up so easily. Sylvia said she wasn't jealous, she was simply curious and suggested she avoid showing Second such sarcasm as she would surely charm him. The elf said not to worry, she only showed it to people like Sylvia. The blonde girl says it's such an honor and comments on how hard she tries to hide her wolfish nature under a sheepskin veneer. Yukari asks what's wrong. So you're okay with being pretty on the outside? Sylvia asks. The elf replies that she too broke her 1 message a week promise and sends him rather cute messages, doesn't she? Finally, she adds, "That poem where Sylvia compared you both to flowers was ridiculous." The girl responded to this by saying that the elf was making noise every night, asking them to be quieter. They insulted each other. It was really scary. And so their days went by. Meanwhile, the boy is fighting the she-wolf. About 3 months have passed since he started. She has finally activated that same behavior pattern. He prepares his attack. The moment he prepares his attack for her dark transformation, her shadow disappears. If he attacks her in this state, his attacks will be completely nullified. He himself will be open to her attacks and will inevitably catch one of them. Each of her attacks is fatal to him in this state, so he couldn't attack her while she's under the void shadow. He cancelled his attack and leaped back. As soon as her transformation ended, she would immediately activate her dark summoning. Now that he hadn't been able to stun her with an attack, there was nothing he could do to stop it. He could only pray it wasn't a spear. He was lucky. She summoned her staff. Now she'll remain in staff mode until she's knocked out. The question is how to do that, with 2 rook archery crits, 1 crit and 2 normal attacks, or 4 normal attacks with no crits. Dark Sorcery, a cruel black mist that forcibly reduces your HP to 1 upon contact. This attack also has a very wide range. He attacks with a rook's arrow, which surprises the spirit. It lands a critical hit. He's prepared to be hit, but he's determined to wait. He believes it's a mistake to even think about evading such a large-scale attack. He uses transformation. After activating the transformation, he will be invulnerable for 8 seconds. He attacks again. He doesn't get a critical hit. So to knock her out, he needs to fire 1 more shot. In his current position, knowing he's guaranteed to knock her out with the next shot, even a hit from dark magic won't be a problem for him. He fires another shot. The 8-second invulnerability ends. In exchange for dropping his HP to 1, he knocked her out. Otherwise, attacks would have followed, but since he knocked her out, he could heal safely. Upon rising, she would rush him as usual, beginning with a dark transformation. He had already returned to his usual position. The workdays will begin again. How much more time will it take him, he wonders. Today, the number of attempts has exceeded 2,000. Thus, almost 4 months have passed. Every day, he made exactly 18 attempts to tame her. The spirit suggests they return. The young man thought the spirit was bored with all this and decided to ask about it, but it seemed worried about him. He was very pleased, but they'd have to work for a while longer. Second says there's no point. If any problem arises, they'll rush home immediately, but nothing out of the ordinary was mentioned in the weekly reports. It's a lie. The girl's weekly reports had provided plenty of cause for concern. It seemed the reformist faction in the capital, led by Balmaro and supporting First Prince Klaus, would soon make its move. Time was running out. Besides, he wondered how much stronger Sylvia and Echo had become. The boy is curious about how Yukari handled his assignments, the completed estates, and the progress with Second's castle. All of this excites him. He wants to return home as soon as possible. The hero himself doesn't understand why he doesn't return. He simply needs an excuse to force him to return. The hero realizes it's an addiction. He can't help himself. Taming a she-wolf is like something you can't give up. There's only one way to save herself, to tame her. Second went to bed. He wished for it all to end quickly and closed his eyes. 2,168 attempts. He thought it would happen someday, and it did. She used the void shadow summonings following her transformation simultaneously, and he couldn't stop her from entering her strongest mode. The situation was the worst of the worst. She had less than 25% health remaining, meaning she was also in berserk mode. The strongest mode has been merged with the berserker mode. In addition to its insanely high damage, the Dark Flame Spear has a range of approximately 3 meters and a permanently active ability to attack with dark flames from a distance. If he, with his current stats, were to touch the dark flames for even 2 seconds, he would, at best, be near death. If he tries to fight, he'll die. If he tries to escape, the same outcome. Her attacks aren't so weak that he can escape her by turning his back. He's going to use his trump card. The Horn of a Goblin Mage, and while he called it a trump card, it's more like an escape tool. Goblin mages use the random teleportation spell. This teleportation can be activated by thrusting an object into a monster. However, it's a terribly useless item, requiring numerous conditions to be met. It doesn't matter anymore. He had no intention of using it on Anko. He'll use it on himself. By thrusting it into himself, he'll be able to escape instantly. Thus, it becomes a trump card for an emergency escape. Quite some time has passed. The she-wolf is approaching. The boy is getting ready. It's simply impossible to get close to her now. He has no chance of winning, so this is a forced escape. he promised to return. The girl suddenly stopped and looked sadly as if she was asking him not to leave. He was surprised. The spirit asks what's wrong with him. He played his trump card. He didn't understand why he was running from such a powerful adversary. He wonders what will remain if he runs away, answering himself nothing. The guy thinks he must become stronger than anyone or anything. He's using transformation. The invulnerability lasts 8 seconds. His only chance is to do it 2 seconds after 6. He's not going to back down. He flew towards her, laughing. Second is delighted with what is happening and attacks the boat with his bow. This time he wasn't aiming for the legs but straight for the head. Now Anko had less than 20% HP left, 0.2 seconds left, and he wasn't running away. He activates Tames. The girl doesn't budge and he's given up. The guy has already resigned himself to his ending. Suddenly she stopped and the atmosphere suddenly became quiet. The she-wolf sat down on one knee and became tamed. The girl is very happy to see her master. The young man is surprised. He can't believe how such a miracle happened. He's surprised no one has ever tamed her in these modes before. He can't believe he managed to do it. He tried to tame her in one way but accidentally discovered another. The girl calls him master. The she-wolf wants to devote herself entirely to him, so she asks to be allowed to stay with him for the rest of her days. He is surprised. The hero didn't know she could speak. This shocked him no less than the fact that the taming had worked. Since she was tamed, he noticed she'd begun to move as if she'd acquired a soul. He tried to figure out what was wrong. He asked the girl directly. She replied that she'd gained self-awareness several hundred years ago. He asked the reason for the girl's behavior. The she-wolf explained that she was under an impossible-to-resist spell, controlled by divine power. However, it's impossible to rule out the possibility that her memory was overwritten the moment she was tamed. It's also possible that someone added a memory to her later. That's what the protagonist reasoned. He called her by name Anko and she happily obeyed him. They got to know each other. They set out on the way home together. Anko had never been outside before. No wonder she was so happy. Along the way in the corridor, they encountered powerful monsters called black ghosts. Each one was quite powerful and they also attacked in groups. There are 5 of them. Second was planning to fight alone when suddenly the she-wolf began to destroy them herself. The young man was surprised. The black ghost's HP dropped to 1. The girl, having destroyed the first one, summoned a shadow staff. She prepares to attack them. Meanwhile, the young man felt the urge to cheer for her, which he did. When the ghosts were about to attack as well, she dealt damage to the enemies by hitting their shadows. The enemies are defeated. The guy is slightly surprised. It turns out that Anko in this life is different from Anko in her past. He praises her. The guy decides to test her to see how she's different from her past self. He asks her to look at her measurements. She agrees, but the hero realizes that he doesn't care whether they're big or not. The hero understands everything. There are more restrictions and a new condition has been added. Dark magic can only be used on enemies weaker than oneself. The cooldown is 3600 seconds. This only works once per hour. Additionally, some skills have received minor modifications. The cooldown on dark transformation has been removed, and the cooldowns on dark teleportation and dark summoning have been set to 60 seconds. Compared to their previous life, these are solid improvements. Compared to their pre-taming state, however, everything except transformation has been degraded. It can be said that all the changes were extremely well thought out and he was convinced that God exists, or rather that the developer exists. Anko asks the owner if she's useful, asking for a comment. The guy says 5,000 out of 100, or rather, 1,000,000. So they hurried home. He stayed there for 4 months. He could hear that autumn had already arrived outside. He walked forward, thinking about all sorts of nonsense, in high spirits after taming Anko. The boy reflects on the dual nature of beautiful stories, acknowledging that each has its downside, but also noting that there were pleasant moments. His monologue is interrupted by incoherent muttering, perhaps expressing embarrassment or awkwardness. Anko's unique combat limitations are explained. Her strength is directly dependent on the absence of sunlight. In the shadows or at night, she fights at full power, but even the slightest exposure to sunlight weakens her proportionally to the amount of light. The conditions are simple. Closed spaces or darkness are no problem, but under the blazing sun, Anko finds combat impossible. Second reacts to the unexpected blow to the stomach, admitting he hadn't foreseen this turn of events. He notes ironically that there's nothing he can do now, but expresses confidence that Anko will be worth his 4 months of effort. The proverb, "no pain, no gain," flashes through his thoughts, emphasizing the value of effort.